Chapter 123. Chu Tian was like a travel-worn traveler as he walked into the city. Central State City's streets were several times wider than South Sky City's, and each street was split into two, one big and one small. One was for beast carts and the other was for people. Beast carts came and went on the streets, and it did not seem to be congested at all. Central State City is truly extraordinary. Chu Tian looked around. On the streets of Central State City, there were all kinds of shops, dojos, and training halls. The streets were filled with cultivators, and they were all dressed very well. Each person belonged to a different family. The color of their clothes, their family's totem, and etc. The flags were very clear and eye-catching. It was easy to tell which family or power a person belonged to with a single glance. Chu Tian was dressed like a rogue cultivator, and this kind of person was not liked by others. In this day and age, if one did not have any power, one could not do anything. What kind of future could a rogue cultivator have? Chu Tian did not care about the strange gazes of the passers-by. He continued to aimlessly stroll around, enjoying the bustling scenery of Central State City. Central State City had a well-known Central State Academy. It had tens of thousands of students, and could be considered a medium-sized sect. Because of this, Central State City not only had a luxurious business atmosphere, it also had a strong academic atmosphere. No matter where one went, one could see dojos and training halls. Speaking of Central State Academy, Chu Tian thought of Nangong Yun. She had been here for a while, so she should be doing quite well. It wasn't that Chu Tian did not think of going to Central State Academy to find Nangong Yun, but Central State Academy was very big and Chu Tian did not know where to look. If he went to ask around, it would be hard to guarantee that his identity would not be leaked. He would wait for a bit. There was no need to rush. While Chu Tian was walking on the street, he suddenly heard a few low roars behind him. 8 horsemen riding ferocious giant tigers were fiercely rushing towards him. They drove away all the carriages that were passing by, and used their long whips to beat the peddlers and servants, forcibly opening up a wide road. Scram! All of you scram! The heavenly sword young master has arrived, all unrelated people scram. The knight's ferocious appearance had originally aroused the dissatisfaction of the people, but when they heard that it was the heavenly sword young master, they were all scared to retreat, not even daring to complain. Chu Tian narrowed his eyes and said to himself, "Heavenly sword young master? It was that Chu Xinghe. This fellow is too overbearing." The little fox also nodded. It was rare for it to agree with its master. "What do you know? Who is the heavenly sword young master?" "He's the #1 genius of the Central State. This is the face of our Central State City, and the pride of Central State City. If you dare speak carelessly, be careful of your life." Several passers-by began to reprimand Chu Tian, as if belittling the heavenly sword young master was the same as belittling Central State City. This made Chu Tian feel very uncomfortable. Who was he, Chu Xinghe, to represent a city? At this moment, go! Hiya! Hiya! 3 rows of silver-robed Chu clan swordsmen galloped over. Every single Chu clan swordsman was dressed exactly the same, and they were all mounted on azure jade dragon scale colts. This was an extremely powerful warhorse, 2 meters tall, with a body as hard as metal and stone. It could travel 10,000 miles in a single day, and it also possessed the battle prowess of the peak of the 9th layer of body refinement. 3 rows of knights, each row had 8, for a total of 24. Each one of them had an incomparably strong aura. There were already people in the crowd that cried out, 24 heavenly sword guards. Each one of them has a strength at the 2nd awakened soul layer, and has an ancient cultivation technique passed down by the heavenly sword young master. They follow the heavenly sword young master all year round and sweep in all directions. They are the most loyal guards of the heavenly sword young master and the strongest protectors of the Central State Chu family. This is the power of the heavenly sword young master? He really is worthy of being the heavenly sword young master. The rogue cultivators were all shocked when they saw this. The guards were all at the second awakened soul layer, and there were a total of 24 of them. They were all fierce-looking, and it was clear they cultivated a special cultivation technique. Their battle strength was much stronger than normal second awakened soul layer cultivators. The heavenly sword young master was truly terrifying. After the 24 celestial sword guards passed by, there were a few rows of magnificent and solemn guards of honor. The horses they chose were all majestic and beautiful white jade war horses, which were 3 feet taller than ordinary horses. Over 100 cavalrymen with golden spears in their hands were sitting on the huge white jade war horses, escorting a beast carriage in a majestic manner as it slowly drove over. What kind of beast carriage was this? His entire body was golden, radiating light in all directions. The moment he appeared, everyone present felt their minds tremble violently. It was as if they had seen an ancient god slowly rising from the end of the earth. That majestic and domineering aura was like a king inspecting his own territory. The boundless pressure was like a tsunami that covered the sky and covered the earth, making everyone feel so insignificant. Roar! Roar! The golden beast carriage was pulled by 2 giant creatures. These creatures had the 4 limbs of tigers and the body of a flood dragon. They were majestic and dignified, with an incomparably strong aura that made it hard for people to look at them. Tiger flood dragon. An ancient species, tiger flood dragon. The rogue cultivators that saw the heavenly sword young master for the first time were all excited, almost wanting to bow down. The tiger flood dragon was an ancient species that had the bloodline of a flood dragon. Its strength was terrifying and tyrannical. Just these 2 tiger flood dragons pulling the carriage had already reached the triple awakened soul realm, and there was still a lot of room for growth. The moment the tiger flood dragon golden carriage passed through the streets, the air seemed to freeze. Everyone felt a stabbing pain in their bodies, like a majestic mountain was pressing down on their shoulders. Greetings to the heavenly sword young master! Greetings to the heavenly sword young master! In front of this strong pressure, everyone unconsciously knelt down. This scene was like a noble going out on a journey. Chu Tian felt the aura coming from the tiger flood dragon golden carriage, and his brows slightly turned serious. Whether it was this powerful golden carriage or these 2 majestic tiger flood dragons, they were not things that Central State City should have. There was only one possibility. Chu Xinghe had obtained some kind of ancient inheritance, and these were all inherited items. He never thought that he would have such luck. It would be hard for such a person not to be strong. There were 2 bodyguards on the left and right of the tiger flood dragon golden carriage. One of them was a person dressed like a scholar and the other was a one-eyed burly man. The person dressed like a scholar was none other than the life-snatching scholar who had lost to Chu Tian not long ago, Chu Tungwen. Everyone present knelt down because of the heavenly sword young master's pressure. Only Chu Tian was still standing straight, so Chu Tian was very eye-catching. Chu Tungwen looked over and instantly saw him. His expression instantly changed. It's him. Wasn't this the Lu Rin he met not long ago? But for some reason, after not seeing him for a few days, he had become younger. A cold and arrogant voice came from the golden carriage. This brat can block my pressure without kneeling, it seems like he has some skills. Does Mr. Tongwen know him? Chu Tungwen hesitated for a few seconds and did not say the truth because of his face. He has offended me before, but we don't have much of a relationship. Ha 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 ha. The one-eyed man suddenly laughed. Since he has offended old brother Tongwen, how can we let him stand in Central State City alive? Let me, Chu Batian, take his little life for old brother Tongwen. Chu Tongwen's expression changed. He wanted to stop him, but it was already too late. The one-eyed man stomped on the ground and teleported from the side of the golden carriage, appearing directly above Chu Tian. Large amounts of runes condensed on his right fist as he wildly laughed. Brat, your luck is very bad. Die for me. There was no reason. There was no fear. Just because Chu Tian did not kneel after seeing the heavenly sword young master's carriage, the one-eyed man wanted to kill Chu Tian on the street, wanting to take Chu Tian's life on the spot. This fist was like a giant mountain pressing down on him. The one-eyed man did not care about the lives of the bystanders. Chu Tian's expression slightly changed. The one-eyed man had a triple awakened soul strength, so it was not easy for Chu Tian to deal with him. He could only condense the starlight immortal body's power and forcefully block this attack. That terrifying strength pushed Chu Tian back several feet, and the surrounding people all spat out blood from their internal injuries. The starlight around Chu Tian's body cracked, and he almost exploded on the spot. This large man had such a strong destructive might. This fellow should not have used his full strength. Chu Batian revealed a surprised expression. A trivial first awakened soul layer cultivator can block 50% of my strength, but you won't be so lucky with this fist. Batian, come back. Chu Batian was prepared to shatter the other side's defenses, but a voice came from the Tiger Dragon Gold carriage. Chu Batian was a bit stunned, and could only obediently retreat. The Tiger Dragon Gold carriage slowly moved forward. When it passed by Chu Tian, a voice came from inside. Young man, your talent is not bad, it would be a pity if you died here. Pledge your loyalty to me and become my servant. I can personally guide you in your cultivation. Become your servant? And guide me in my cultivation? Chu Tian had lived 2 lifetimes. This was the first time someone had said they would guide him in his cultivation. Chu Tian gave a cold smile and said word by word, "This old man is not rare." Silence. The scene was completely silent. Everyone's expression changed. The heavenly sword young master Chu Xinghe had personally recruited him, and even said he would guide him. What kind of honor was this? Chu Xinghe was the only person in Central State City that had the chance to become a royal noble in the future. How many awakened soul cultivators wanted to follow him even in their dreams? This nameless youth, this nameless rogue cultivator, in front of everyone, with an extremely disdainful attitude, he had rejected the heavenly sword young master's invitation. This was slapping the heavenly sword young master's face. As expected, from the Tiger Dragon Gold carriage, a terrifying aura suddenly filled the air, making everyone feel a suffocating pressure. That voice became cold and terrifying. This really is the stupidest choice. Why? Chu Tian faced this tsunami-like aura, but he still did not move. Your Excellency has no virtue, I disdain to be with you. This one's bones are hard, I cannot bend my back. Your Excellency has no virtue, I disdain to be with you. This one's bones are hard, I cannot bend my back. These words were like pieces of golden bricks that smashed heavily on the ground, shattering the sturdy floorboards and emitting an earth-shattering boom. The thousands of soldiers kneeling on the ground all had a look of horror on their faces. What kind of character was this? What kind of courage was this? Even when facing a heaven's pride like the heavenly sword young master, this youth was still not willing to put down his dignity. Did he ever think about the consequences of his actions? Dignity, was it really more important than his life? Chapter 124. Chu Tunwen and Chu Batian both revealed a look of shock. The two of them were not from the Chu family, but rather from the common folk. Whether it was because they feared the heavenly sword young master's strength, or because they respected the heavenly sword young master's fame, or because they chose their masters, they chose to abandon their surnames and became the heavenly sword young master Chu Xinghe's subordinates. The heavenly sword young master's peerless style was something that no one in Central State could look up to. No matter who it was, they would feel inferior when they saw this kind of person. What kind of confident person was this? What kind of arrogance was this? Only they could resist the heavenly sword young master's peerless glory. The two of them were the heavenly sword young master's people. Chu Tungwen even had a grudge with Chu Tian, but in this short moment, they looked at this nameless youth in a new light and even felt a sense of admiration. Because what they could not do, this youth had done it. But that was it. The tallest tree in the forest would be destroyed by the wind. From today onwards, this youth would no longer exist in this world. No matter how outstanding he was, it would be useless. Chu Xinghe's voice was very calm, like a king interrogating a commoner. It was filled with an irresistible majesty. Everyone in Central State City knows what the result of offending this young master is. You seem to be very confident, so this young master will give you a chance. These words were like a reward. I will only use and I will suppress my cultivation to the same level as you. The heavenly sword young master Chu Xinghe's voice was ethereal and bright, just like a spiritual god. It was as if the wind and clouds were stirred. If you can block this sword and not die, then you have the qualifications to continue living. Otherwise, you will forever disappear from this world. When everyone heard this, they all pitied this youth. Because when the heavenly sword young master said these words, this youth was already a dead man. The heavenly sword young master had a very famous name. That was to kill Chu Xinghe. It was said that at the same level and realm, no one had ever been able to block his sword. Even the other three young masters were no exception. The heavenly sword young master's strength had already surpassed everyone's imagination. Even famous figures like Chu Tungwen and Chu Batian were defeated by Chu Xinghe with a single sword strike. From then on, they were willing to serve Chu Xinghe. This sword was the Nether King's invitation. A smile appeared on Chu Tian's face. You seem to be very confident that you can kill me with one strike. Then I'll play with you. Let's not talk about one strike, 2 strikes, or even 3 strikes. How about that? The Central Continent city citizens were all speechless. He was really a newborn calf that was not afraid of the tiger. He was already at death's door, yet he was still so stubborn. Even if the heavenly sword young master suppressed his strength to the first awakened soul layer, his full strength slash was enough to kill a triple awakened soul. His strength had already surpassed common sense. Chu Xinghe's cold voice rang out, "Are you ready?" Chu Tian grinned. "Why do you need to prepare? Just bring it on." In that instant, the air in all 4 directions surged and a strong aura began to condense. This pressure was very strong. Not to mention a normal first awakened soul layer cultivator, if they were to face this terrifying pressure, they would freeze on the spot and lose their ability to fight. At this time, golden spirit energy soared into the sky. A fierce 4-clawed flood dragon appeared, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. The flood dragon's body was covered in golden scales, and each scale was covered in runes. It was filled with a deep and vast divine might. After circling around the golden carriage a few times, suddenly, "Soul Sword Secret Art." A vigorous and forceful voice rang out from within the golden chariot. At the same time, a golden sword soared into the sky. The flood dragon abruptly chased after it and drilled its head into the golden sword, becoming one with the sword. The light that suddenly erupted was like a sun that illuminated the earth. It appeared. The golden flood dragon sword. The legendary heavenly sword young master's source spirit. The strongest sword source spirit that the Central State Chu family had in the last several hundred years. This golden flood dragon sword, not only did it have an unparalleled destructive might, it also contained the might of a flood dragon. Wherever the sword pointed, it would be invincible. Heaven-cutting art. The strongest move of the Central State Chu family's soul sword secret art. Chu Xinghe's strength was much stronger than people imagined. His soul sword secret art had not only been mastered, it had already reached the large success realm. It had even reached the perfection realm. Once the heaven-cutting style was used, the golden flood dragon sword seemed to have the power to split the heavens and earth. The fierce momentum was condensed to its peak in a short period of time, leaving a deep sword mark on the road. It instantly arrived in front of Chu Tian. Up, down, left, right. All the space was sealed. It made it impossible for Chu Tian to dodge this slash. Chu Tian's body was covered in a glass like starlight. He pulled out the netherworld sword from his back, and on the blade that was like ice, large amounts of runes lit up and blue and white flames covered it. Starlight glass body. The netherworld flame sword appeared in his hand. Chu Tian did not plan on dodging at all. Even if he was facing a strong pressure, he still fearlessly took a step forward. He brandished the flaming sword and heavily collided with this attack. Pung! The netherworld sword had the effect of absorbing energy and the netherworld flame had the effect of burning energy. Both of them could effectively weaken the opponent's attack. However, Chu Xinghe's slash was too strong. The power that was released in an instant completely surpassed the limit of what he could bear. Countless sword chi sprayed out, turning into tens of thousands of sharp needles. They rained down on Chu Tian's body like a storm. His starlight glass body, which was originally extremely sturdy, was instantly riddled with holes. It kept shattering. Chu Tian gave a loud roar. Spirit energy continued to pour out from his body as he used all his strength to activate the netherworld sword. He used all his strength to dissolve the golden flood dragon sword's power, and he used all his strength to repair the starlight immortal body, blocking the terrifying power of this slash. Scram for father! Chu Tian's wild netherworld sword slash sent the golden flood dragon sword flying. It circled in the air before flying back into the golden carriage. Chu Tian used the sword to support his body, and his breathing became a bit rushed. His clothes were completely torn, and there were at least several hundred small wounds on his body. Blood dyed half of his body red in the blink of an eye. Even so, he was still standing and did not fall down. Even if he was heavily injured, he would still break Chu Xinghe's sword. Everyone was shocked. The young man had really blocked Chu Xinghe's slash. He did not even take half a step back and was still standing in the same place. The legend of the heavenly sword young master's one/kill. It had actually been broken by a normal-looking young man. This was enough to shake Central State City. Chu Tian wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and broke out in laughter. Heavenly sword young master Chu Xinghe? Even if you have the large success cultivation technique, you are still only this strong. What are you so arrogant about? What qualifications do you have to make me your servant? Chu Batian flew into a rage. I'll go kill him. Forget it. Chu Xinghe's voice came from the golden carriage. This young master will keep his words. Since you can block my slash, I'll let you live this time. This young master has been unrivaled in the same generation for too long. I need 1 or 2 decent opponents. You have a lot of potential. If you die now, it's too much of a pity. I'll wait for you to grow up and challenge me again. At that time, I'll openly kill you. Chu Batian stared at Chu Tian and said, Brat, consider yourself lucky. Chu Xinghe said in a low voice, Let's go. The Heavenly Sword Young Masters group gradually went far away. Everyone slowly gasped for breath. Each person's face was filled with shock. What happened here today? It would take at most 2-3 days for the news to spread across Central State. Chu Tian turned and walked into the crowd. Netherworld flickering flame. He could not stay here for long. Chu Tian instantly used his sword art and quickly entered the netherworld, disappearing from the crowd. The nameless youth had blocked the Heavenly Sword Young Master's slash. The legend of killing with one slash had been destroyed. Everyone began to discuss. What is the background of this youth? He can actually block the Heavenly Sword Young Master. No. It's not as simple as blocking. The Heavenly Sword Young Master suppressed his cultivation to the same realm, but the Heavenly Sword Young Master's cultivation technique has already reached the large success realm. This youth is only at the small success realm. How can the two be compared? With this, everyone was shocked. Even if their cultivation was the same, the Heavenly Sword Young Master's cultivation technique had the advantage. This soul sword secret art was known as the strongest attack cultivation technique in Central State, and the Heavenly Sword young master had cultivated it to the large success realm. How could the two be compared? What do you know? The Heavenly Sword young master only underestimated his opponent, otherwise this brat would have died several times already. The Heavenly Sword young master is a member of the Chu family. He has obtained an ancient sword cultivation technique. The truly powerful cultivation technique is not the sole sword secret art, but rather the inherited sword art. The Heavenly Sword young master did not use his finishing move, so the Heavenly Sword young master did not use his full strength. Even so, a casual slash could seriously injure him. Who is strong and who is weak can be seen with a single glance. A portion of the people who worshipped the Heavenly Sword young master immediately began to refute. These people were very reasonable. The Heavenly Sword young master was not a normal Chu family swordsman successor. He had obtained an ancient sword cultivation inheritance, so his true strength was not limited to this. Wrong. You're all wrong. In the entire battle, you've all ignored the most important point. The Heavenly Sword young master has already released his source spirit, but what about that youth? In the entire process, he did not release his source spirit. With this, everyone turned silent. That's right, the youth did not release his source spirit at all. When they thought of this detail, everyone was so scared that they almost peed themselves. A person who did not release his source spirit actually blocked the Heavenly Sword young master's powerful slash? How was this possible? When a cultivator used their source spirit and didn't use their source spirit, the difference in battle strength was several times. The stronger the source spirit, the stronger the amplification. Even if that youth's source spirit was above average, it was enough to double his strength. If it was like this, he could completely block the Heavenly Sword young master's attack without being injured. Why? Why did he not use his source spirit? Everyone had no choice but to accept this shocking reality. This was a heaven-defying youth. Who was he and where did he come from? In Central State City, everyone began to ask around. However, in the entire Central State City, there was no news of this youth, and no one knew who this youth was. Ever since he fought with the Heavenly Sword young master, this miraculous person seemed to have disappeared into thin air. Chapter 125. Creating a sensation on the first day. This was not something Chu Tian wanted to happen. If his identity was exposed, he would lose this opportunity. It was a good thing Chu Tian did not use his source spirit. Just based on his abilities and characteristics, they could not lock onto Chu Tian's true identity. Of course, in order to not expose his identity in a short period of time, Chu Tian had paid a large price. That Chu Xinghe looked like he was proud of himself, but he was actually a cold and treacherous person. Chu Xinghe kept his promise and let the young man go. He even pretended to be magnanimous and let Chu Tian become stronger before challenging him, showing the Heavenly Sword young master's arrogant side in front of everyone. Actually, Chu Xinghe had let the young man go for a reason. That slash had condensed thousands of sword qi into needles and pierced into the young man's body. It was enough to destroy his meridians, and even if he didn't die, he would become a cripple. Chu Xinghe was confident in his own methods. He believed that the young man would become a cripple. So he pretended to be magnanimous and left. Chu Xinghe had miscalculated. Chu Tian's Netherworld Flame Sword was a combination of attack and defense, negating most of the power. The Starlight Glass Body's strong defense also reduced most of the power, so the sword qi was not even a tenth of its original strength. Chu Tian had tempered his meridians with the power of the stars for a long time, making his meridians very strong. It also had a high regeneration ability, so although it was a bit injured, it would not be destroyed. But it had to be said, this fellow really did have some skills. Even if Chu Tian hid his source spirit, did Chu Xinghe use his full strength? With Chu Tian's current strength, even if he used his full strength, his chances of winning were very low. Not to mention that they were in the same cultivation base, but Chu Xinghe's cultivation base was already at the peak fourth awakened soul layer. The Chu family? Chu Xinghe? Just wait and see. Even if it wasn't for the blood feud and shame of the original owner. Based on what you've done to me today, I'm going to vent my anger. Chu Tian was not a narrow-minded person, but he was also not a person who would suffer losses. Forgiveness was also different from person to person. Being severely injured by Chu Xinghe today was an insult to Chu Tian. Therefore, sooner or later, he would get his revenge and humiliate the Chu family. He just needed to give Chu Tian a chance. Chu Tian also understood the difference in strength. He could only endure for a while and wait for an opportunity. When his strength and influence grew, he would find an opportunity to get back at them. Let's go to the Zhongzhou city market and see if there's anything useful. Chu Tian changed into a clean set of clothes and put on a bamboo hat to cover his face. He stuffed the little fox into his clothes and left the small hotel where he was temporarily staying. Chu Tian was currently weaker than Chu Xinghe. The main reason was because his cultivation technique was lacking. The starlight immortal body was mysterious and strong, but for Chu Tian, he was more interested in its effects in building his foundation. In the future, when he became stronger, this cultivation technique would be replaced by a stronger cultivation technique. Netherworld Flame Sword was the same. Chu Tian was limited by his current situation and couldn't find top-grade cultivation materials, so he couldn't practice a top-grade cultivation technique. The Netherworld Flame Sword had both offensive and defensive abilities, so it was the most suitable cultivation technique for Chu Tian right now. However, his cultivation was too low. Chu Tian urgently needed cultivation materials to increase his cultivation technique's realm. If he increased his cultivation realm with either of them, he would have the confidence to fight against Chu Xinghe at the same level. If he could increase his cultivation realm with both of them, Chu Tian would have the confidence to win against someone in the same realm. Central State City. There was a place called the Treasure Gathering Pavilion. This was the largest trading platform in the main city. The Treasure Gathering Pavilion did not belong to any family, but rather it was a large platform created by various large families. It contained several different kinds of heaven and earth treasures, with various large mercenary groups and families providing precious goods for sale. This was the first time Chu Tian had arrived. The Treasure Gathering Pavilion was a good place to go. The Treasure Gathering Pavilion looked like an octagonal palace. It was made from white jade, giving off a noble and imposing aura. There were 8 entrances and it was heavily guarded. This was the high-quality route. There weren't many goods, but the cheapest and lowest quality goods cost several tens of thousands of gold coins. It was enough to make an awakened soul cultivator find it hard to bear. When Chu Tian arrived at the center of the Treasure Gathering Pavilion, the goods displayed here shocked him. 1,000-year-old dragon blood grass, sold for 1.5 million gold coins. The dragon blood grass was a level 2 elixir. It only needed to grow to become an elixir. This dragon blood grass had been appraised and was around 2,550 years old. It had the quality of a saint-grade herb, becoming a half-step saint-grade herb. Although it had not become a true saint-grade herb, its price was still several times higher than an elixir. This herb being sold for a high price of 1 or 2 million gold coins was not expensive at all. Chu Tian looked around as he walked. The goods here were easily sold for millions of gold coins. There was no lack of things that were useful to Chu Tian, but the money he had on him had other uses. Unless he met something that would help him a lot, otherwise Chu Tian would not easily buy it. The crowd in front of him suddenly became noisy. Out of the way! Everyone out of the way! 100 or 200 guards kept the crowd at bay. 5 or 6 old men in white robes were leading the way, using a cart made of gold to slowly push a product covered in red cloth to the center of the Treasure Gathering Pavilion, stopping in front of a huge diamond display cabinet. Open the restriction. The old men began to chant at the same time. The diamond display case was opened and several people placed the item inside, suddenly lifting the red cloth covering it. When everyone saw this item, they all stared with wide eyes. It was a huge, black rock with a diameter of about 3 meters. It was as black as ink and was made of volcanic glass, with a jumping green flame sealed within it. Elemental Source Stone. There were quite a few treasures in the treasure-gathering pavilion, but when he saw this item, Chu Tian couldn't help being shocked. This world was filled with all sorts of colors, and there was a strange life form called an elemental life form. Elemental life forms were different from flesh and blood life forms. Their bodies were made of pure energy, so their way of living, reproduction, and habits were all different from normal life forms. The elemental race did not have a difference in gender. Because of this, their method of reproduction was very strange. They divided their bodies and placed them in a safe container. This separated part did not have any consciousness, but after a long period of breeding, it would awaken a new consciousness, giving birth to a new elemental life form. The giant stone in front of Chu Tian seemed to be an elemental life form stone. This energy was dark, so it was most likely an elemental demon's descendant. This kind of thing mostly existed in the core world, it was rarely seen on the surface. He didn't know where Central State City found this one. At this time, the Netherworld sword began to violently tremble. The pure energy contained in the stone caused the Netherworld sword to resonate. Chu Tian instantly understood. This elemental source could nourish the Netherworld ghost flame and could restore the Netherworld sword's power. It was definitely enough to raise Chu Tian's Netherworld flame sword to the next level. This really was a good thing. Chu Tian had a bit of interest, but when he saw the price, it was like someone had poured a bucket of cold water on him. 5 million gold coins. Actually, this price was not high for an elemental source, but for the current Chu Tian, where could he find 350 gold coins? Damn! It was hard to find a treasure that could increase his strength and cultivation base, but he could only look at it without being able to buy it. This made Chu Tian very unwilling. 350 million gold coins was not a small amount. Chu Tian was confident that he could get his hands on it. The only thing that Chu Tian was worried about was that before he could raise the money, this thing would be bought by someone else. Wah! 350 million gold coins. It's just a broken stone, this is simply extortion. The surrounding people began to discuss this. There weren't many, but most of them were filled with surprise and complaints. There weren't many people who were interested in this thing. The elemental source itself did not have a high value and they didn't know what use it had, so most people were not interested in it. After discussing it for a while, they all dispersed. According to the rules, this kind of precious thing, if it couldn't be sold in a month, it would be taken back by the seller or it would be sold at a low price in an auction house. There was still hope. Chu Tian made his decision. He had to earn 35 million gold coins in the shortest amount of time and buy this thing. The treasure-gathering pavilion did not lack materials, but they were all very expensive. Chu Tian finally understood that this amount of money could not do anything in Central State City. Miracle commerce was developing very quickly. But it was not fast enough. If Chu Tian wanted to become stronger, he needed more money and resources. But at this time, a very special product immediately caught Chu Tian's attention. It was a large white jade-like bug that was half the size of a palm. Jade Spirit Silkworm. Jade Spirit Silkworm, born as a silkworm and died as a jade. This was a very precious and useful level 2 elixir. Spirit silkworms were creatures that ate herbs, so their bodies contained a lot of spiritual energy. When the spirit silkworm died and turned into a piece of jade, the spiritual energy would not be lost. Instead, it would be completely preserved and become a level 2 elixir that was very suitable for alchemy. This thing could directly increase one's cultivation. It would be a great help to Chu Tian. Chu Tian quickly walked over and asked, How much is this jade spirit silkworm? 200,000 gold coins. A young salesgirl saw Chu Tian dressed as a rogue cultivator, and her eyes flashed with a trace of contempt. She emphasized, "The treasure-gathering pavilion does not bargain." This price was not too expensive for a level 2 elixir. 200,000 gold coins to a normal cultivator was a large sum of money, but it was nothing to Chu Tian. Chu Tian took out a stack of gold coin cards. Right when he was about to pay. "Wait." A voice suddenly came from behind him. "I want this jade spirit silkworm." A young man directly treated Chu Tian as heir. He walked in front of the jade spirit silkworm and pointed at the treasure as he said, "Wrap it up for me. I'm in a hurry." When the salesgirl saw the other person's clothes and badge, her eyes slightly moved. She immediately became very enthusiastic. "So it was young Master Tong, please wait a moment. I'll wrap it up for you." Chapter 126. This was a young man with a noble aura, and behind him was a little girl. This little girl looked like she was carved from jade, and was only 13 or 14 years old. Her eyes were evasive, as if there was a trace of guilt. Chu Tian frowned. "I clearly bought it first, why should I sell it to him?" "Did you pay?" The shop assistant looked at the card in Chu Tian's hand with contempt, revealing a disdainful look. "Since you didn't pay, then it's not considered a transaction. According to what you said, he didn't pay either." The shop assistant was a bit impatient. "Young Master Tong's reputation is worth 1,000,000, can you compare? Where did this nameless brat come from?" The young man said with a face full of ridicule, "Scram before I make a move. Why don't you look at yourself in the mirror? You don't know what kind of turtle crawled in the ditch. You don't deserve to steal from me." The little girl quickly pulled the young man's clothes and said with a mosquito-like voice, "Big brother, forget it. This time it's our fault." "What are you afraid of? He's just a rogue cultivator. Although our family isn't a big clan, but pinching a rogue cultivator to death is as easy as turning our hand. Since some people don't want face and don't know what's good for them, then why should we give him face? You're about to piss me off." Chu Tian laughed and said, "This isn't rational." The young man raised his eyebrows and angrily said, "Who the fuck do you think you are? Come. Throw him onto the street." He didn't even finish. "Bah." Chu Tian slapped him across the face. The young man was thrown several meters away. His face was deformed and he spat out several broken teeth. What happened? With his peak 9th body refinement layer strength, he didn't even know how the other made a move. The shop assistant cried out in alarm, You dare hit young Master Tong. Somebody! Someone is causing trouble here." The Jiubao Pavilion guards hadn't arrived yet. Chu Tian was prepared to go up and stomp a few more times, but who knew at this time? "You're not allowed to hurt my brother." The little girl grabbed a bag from her waist, and a large pile of lumps of wood flew out from it. What was shocking was that the lumps of wood changed shape in midair, unexpectedly turning into wooden bees. Each wooden bee's structure was very exquisite, and an extremely powerful crystal was embedded in them. The detonation of these wooden wasps would inevitably produce a powerful destructive force. Chu Tian stood still, allowing the wooden bees to surround him. Chu Tian calmly looked at the little girl and said, "Are you going to attack me as well?" Aye. The little girl's face was flushed red, and her speech was not very fluent. Although she looked like she was carved from jade, she seemed to be very introverted. She did not like to talk and even stuttered a little. "I'm sorry. Big brother just wants to treat my illness." The young man covered his face as he stood up, his face filled with resentment as he looked at Chu Tian. "You think you're amazing just because you're an awakened soul cultivator? There are a lot of people like you in Central State City. To dare snatch something from my Tong family, I think you're tired of living. Little fish, blow him up." The little girl lowered her head sadly. "Forget it, take this medicine." The wooden bees all returned to the bag. The little girl grabbed the bag and turned around. "Big brother, let's go." The young man angrily said, "What are you doing? I bought this thing to treat your illness." The little girl shook her head and said, "We're late. Stealing other people's things is wrong." "Wait a minute," Chu Tian suddenly asked. "Did you make the mechanical insects?" The little girl was a bit shy, but when the mechanical insects were mentioned, her eyes lit up a bit. "It was made by little fish, but I didn't do it well." This little girl, with a bit of a stutter, was very talented in mechanical mechanisms. Chu Tian's heart skipped a beat as he said, "What's your name?" A large group of guards surrounded him. The young shop assistant pointed at Chu Tian and said, "He's the one who's causing trouble." The guards angrily roared, "Daring to cause trouble in the treasure-gathering pavilion, brat, you're seeking death. Immediately scram for me. Otherwise I'll teach you a lesson." Chu Tian directly ignored this group of fiendish fellows. He looked at the little girl and said, "I can already see that you're not sick at all, it's just a special constitution, am I right?" "I'm called Tong Xiaoyu." The little girl asked in shock, "How did you know?" "I can help you cure it." Tong Xiaoyu's large eyes revealed a look of disbelief. "Really? Xiaoyu, don't believe him." The young man pulled the little girl behind him, his face full of caution as he stared at Chu Tian. "This person's background is unknown, who knows what he's planning?" Chu Tian lightly said, "The decision is in your hands. You want the Jade Spirit Silkworm because you want to borrow the Jade Spirit Silkworm's ability to absorb energy and extract the dark attributed energy from Tong Xiaoyu's body, right? But this won't work, at most it can only alleviate the pain." The young man revealed a suspicious expression. "Can you really cure her?" Chu Tian spread out his hands. "How would I know if you don't let me try?" "Okay, then let's give it a try." Looking at this young man's appearance, he should be a rogue cultivator that had just arrived in the main city. At worst, he would just fail the treatment. "If you can cure Xiaoyu, then we'll call it even. If you can't cure her, then don't blame me for being impolite." "Big brother," Tong Xiaoyu grumbled. The young man directly walked out of the gathering treasure pavilion. "Humph, let's go." This guy was a bit of a playboy, but he was also reasonable. When he found out that the person who slapped him could cure his sister's illness, he suppressed the anger and humiliation in his heart. He could be considered a rational person. Tong family residence. A dignified man sat in the main hall. Tong Yu's sharp eyes swept across these people, his eyes filled with dissatisfaction. "Tong Ming, Tong Xiaoyu, what is the meaning of you bringing an outsider back? Is the Tong family residence a place anyone can enter? Do you have any rules?" The young man Tong Ming hurriedly said, "Uncle, we met him in the gathering treasure pavilion. He said he could cure little sister's illness, so I brought him back to give it a try." "Nonsense." A teacup was smashed to pieces. When Tong Yu stood up, a strong aura was released. It was around the peak first awakened soul layer, but it was enough to make it hard for Tong Ming and Tong Xiaoyu to breathe. So many masters have been helpless all these years. Do you think a random cat or dog on the street can beat those masters? Do you even have a brain? Tong Ming lowered his head, not daring to say anything. Although the head of the Tong family was Tong Ming's father, Tong Yu's seniority was even higher, so he had a lot of prestige in the family. These juniors did not dare talk back. Tong Yu coldly said, "Tong Xiaoyu will be married in half a month. You should understand how important this marriage is to our Tong family. The reason why those families in Central State City are giving our family face is all because of this marriage alliance. Don't cause any trouble at this time." Tong Ming helplessly said, "Yes. Kick this person out for me." Chu Tian gave a cold laugh. "Who do you think you are? You think I'll leave just because you tell me to?" When Tong Yu saw that Chu Tian dared to talk back to him, he flew into a rage and said, "A trivial outsider dares to cause trouble in the Tong family. Someone come. Break his legs for me." A group of Tong family guards charged forward. "I'm afraid you have the ability." Chu Tian reached out his hand and was about to pull out the netherworld sword. Why is it so noisy here? A gentle voice came from outside the door. A scholarly-looking middle-aged man walked in. Big brother, what are you angry about? Tong Ming and Tong Xiaoyu's faces filled with joy as they shouted at the same time. Father! Bowen, you've come at the right time. Tong Yu coldly said. A swindler has infiltrated our Tong Palace and is using the excuse of treating Xiao Yu's illness, but actually wants to harm us. How do you think we should deal with this matter? Tong Bowen revealed a shocked expression. What? Treat Xiao Yu's illness? You can really treat Xiao Yu's illness? Chu Tian nodded. It's not hard. Tong Yu wanted to say something, but Tong Bowen quickly said, Then let him try. We don't have anything to lose anyways. Tong Yu gave a snort. All right, brat, I'll let you try. Chu Tian looked at the two of them in confusion. Who was the Tong family's head? Of course, he did not care about this question at all. Chu Tian had seen Tong Xiaoyu's talent in the mechanical fields, so he wanted to train her. Little fox, come out. A fist-sized snow-white fox lazily came out of his clothes and sat on Chu Tian's shoulder, using its little claws to yawn. Go! The little fox knew what Chu Tian was thinking. It jumped onto Tong Xiaoyu's body and placed its claws on her neck. It suddenly sucked in a deep breath. An incredible scene occurred. From Tong Xiaoyu's pores, countless traces of black aura came out. The pure dark attributed energy gathered together and was finally swallowed by the little fox. It stuck out its pink tongue sweetly, as if it was very satisfied. Then it jumped back onto Chu Tian's shoulder. Tong Xiaoyu revealed a look of pleasant surprise. I feel like I'm completely cured. Chu Tian shook his head and said, The dark attributed energy that has been stuck in your meridians for many years has been removed, but because of your physique, it will produce even more dark energy as time goes on. So, you must follow me for a while before you can be completely cured. Tong Yu flew into a rage hearing this. How can this be? Xiao Yu will be getting married in half a month. Chu Tian was puzzled. You're already in a rush to get married at such a young age? Tong Xiaoyu silently lowered her head. It was clear that this marriage was arranged for her by her family, but Tong Xiaoyu did not like it at all. It's impossible for Tong Xiaoyu to go with you. Tong Yu's eyes fell onto Chu Tian's shoulder. It was the little fox licking its claws, and his eyes revealed a trace of greed. To be able to instantly absorb the dark energy of an extreme physique, this little demonic beast was definitely a priceless treasure, but since this little beast can cure Xiao Yu's condition, you can leave it in the Tong manor. Chu Tian's eyes flashed with a cold light. I'm helping you for free, but not only are you not grateful, you want to take away my pet? Humph! Clean your mouth. Tong Yu waved his hand. I'll give you 10,000 gold coins. Leave this beast behind and then scram. How could there be such a shameless person? The little fox's fur stood up as it bared its teeth at Tong Yu. Chu Tian was a bit angry. What if I refuse? Refuse? What qualifications do you have to refuse? Tong Yu said with a cold smile. Then leave your life behind. Tong Bowen's face became a bit ugly. How can you? Second brother, don't say any more. Tong Yu completely ignored his second brother and said with a face filled with greed. You can see that this little beast is very helpful to Xiao Yu. It's just a nameless pawn, so what if it's killed? What's the big deal? As soon as he said this, Tong Yu released his spirit energy and with a loud roar, he soared into the sky. His body was covered in the glow of his source spirit as he sent a claw at Chu Tian's head. Not even at the second awakened soul layer. What are you being arrogant for? Scram! Chu Tian pulled out the netherworld sword. A bright blue and white sword glow flew across the sky. Tong Yu gave a pitiful cry as he fell to the ground. His right arm had been cut off and he cried out, No, my arm! That severed arm was covered in netherworld ghost flames, and it quickly withered away. Even with powerful healing methods it could not be reattached. You want to kill me with this little bit of strength? Chu Tian's palm slammed into Tong Yu's dantian. I'll cripple you first. The demon god's source spirit's power instantly surged out and crushed all of Tong Yu's meridians. His spirit energy completely collapsed. Just a moment ago, he was a high and mighty peak first awakened soul layer cultivator. Now he was a cripple. Tong Bowen, Tong Ming, and Tong Xiaoyu were all shocked. The Tong family was a small family, and Tong Yu had the highest cultivation in the family. Although he was not the family head, he was arrogant, and even Tong Bowen did not dare offend him. They never would have thought. A peak first awakened soul layer cultivator could not even block a single move from this youth. Chapter 127. Tong Yu being crippled did not make Tong Bowen angry, rather he was secretly happy. Tong Yu's cultivation was high and he had a strong personality, but he was overbearing and selfish. It was because of this that his father did not pass the position to him. In the end, Tong Yu took this matter to heart and became even worse over the years. He did not have the position of family head, but he used the power of the family head. He did what he wanted and acted arbitrarily, not putting Tong Bowen in his eyes. This caused Tong Bowen to have a deep grudge against him. Because of Tong Yu's status and influence, Tong Bowen did not dare make a move against him. My cultivation has been crippled. Second brother, what are you looking at? Quickly take care of this thief. Tong Yu angrily roared. He never would have thought that a moment of greed would lead to this kind of result. His decades of hard work had been crippled. How could Tong Yu accept this? This was simply stripping him of his name. You're now a cripple. What qualifications do you have to point fingers at me? Tong Bowen secretly cursed and coldly said, This matter was my big brother's fault. The Tong family is indebted to the young hero, so how can we burn the bridge after crossing the river? Big brother is heartless, but Bowen cannot be righteous. Good. Tong Yu ran out the door in a sorry state. You treacherous thing, I won't let you go. This brat dares steal the Jing family's young master's fiancé. Just wait for your deaths. What? The Jing family? Chu Tian asked in a daze. The Tianshan Chamber of Commerce's Jing family? He had planned on going to the Tianshan Chamber of Commerce. Central State City was so big, who knew where the Tianshan Chamber of Commerce was located? Now, the people from the Tianshan Chamber of Commerce had actually come looking for them. Tong Bowen slightly knit his brows. He was afraid of the Jing family's power, and was afraid that Tong Yu would complain, so he immediately said, Come, bring big brother away to treat his injuries. Wait. Chu Tian had a strange expression. Let him go. Go tell the Jing family that Tong Xiaoyu's engagement is cancelled. If the Jing family doesn't accept this, I'll sit here and wait. Let them come and tell me. Tong Bowen, Tong Ming, and Tong Xiaoyu were all shocked. Did this kid not want to live anymore? Although the Jing family wasn't one of the four great families, they were still a large family in Central State City. They had been doing business for generations and had deep financial resources. Just the Tianshan Chamber of Commerce alone had several hundred million in assets, not to mention that the Jing family had several other chambers of commerce under their banner. The Jing family's influence was not particularly strong, but their financial power was not small. They had a wide network in South Sky City, and many large families had direct or indirect collaborations with the Jing family. Who would dare to provoke such a large consortium? Tong Yu didn't hesitate to give up his young niece. Wasn't he trying to curry favor with the large consortiums and obtain benefits for himself? The young man was covered in dust. He wore plain clothes and carried an ancient sword. His appearance was mediocre, so he was most likely a rogue cultivator that had just arrived in Central State City. How could a nameless and powerless person dare to offend a financial power like the Jing family? Tong Bowen hurriedly said, No! I said, let him go. Chu Tian was incomparably domineering. If anything happens, I will take responsibility. What the F***ck are you afraid of? You don't even dare to save your own daughter and don't even have the courage to resist. No wonder there are people who dare to step on your head and shit on you. The aura from Chu Tian's body forced Tong Bowen to take a few steps back. He had an ugly expression on his face. Alright. You just wait for me. Tong Yu quickly ran away from the Tong family. Tong Bowen said with a face of fear, "The Jing family's young master Jing Hao is not a normal playboy. If you provoke him, the consequences will be unimaginable." Chu Tian felt this was strange. What kind of earth-shattering matter can this idiot Jing Hao do? You must have just arrived in South Sky City, so you don't know. Tong Bowen wiped the sweat off his face and said, "Half a month ago, Jing Hao had come in contact with people from Miracle Commerce with Vice Chairman Jing Xian. He had also signed a resource transfer agreement with Miracle Commerce." Chu Tian poured himself some tea as he said, "So what?" When the news was sent to Central State City, no one cared about it at the time. When Tong Bowen said this, his eyes flashed with a trace of envy. Who would have thought that this seemingly unfair transaction actually had a deeper meaning? Chu Tian almost laughed. "There's a fart of meaning," Tong Bowen said with a serious expression. Jing Hao had signed a secret agreement with Miracle Commerce, so Tianshan Chamber of Commerce could directly receive products from Miracle Commerce. A week ago, a batch of qi refining pills was sent to Central State City, causing a stir in Central State City. Don't you know how popular Miracle Commerce's qi refining pills are? Under Tianshan Chamber of Commerce's hype, the most expensive one was sold for a sky-high price of 40,000 gold coins. Only at this moment did people realize what kind of plan Jing Hao and Jing Xian had. On the surface, they were pressured by the large families and made a normal transaction with Miracle Commerce, but in reality, they were thinking of long-term benefits. It's said that from now on, Miracle Commerce will supply Tianshan Chamber of Commerce with goods every month, including qi refining pills and even electric lights. Because of Jing Hao's successful negotiation, he has become a famous person in the Central State City merchant circle. The Jing family is placing more and more importance on him. Forcefully canceling the engagement at this time, isn't that slapping the Jing family's face? What was this? These two idiots had been blackmailed by Chu Tian, but they had become famous. A bottle of qi refining pills had a shocking might. It increased the influence of Tianshan Chamber of Commerce by a large amount. The citizens of the main city were unfamiliar with Miracle Commerce, but the rumors of Miracle Commerce had already spread throughout the main city. The matter of Chu Tian holding Prince Tianlang hostage and looking down on the Ye family's wolf cavalry had already been spread to every household. This was a small company born in a small place, but no one in Central State City dared to look down on it. A company that had offended the three large families and was still safe and sound. What kind of terrifying strength was this? A company that could produce qi refining pills and electric light. What kind of technology was this? Chu Tian was even more miraculous. He was even turned into a monster with 3 heads and 9 arms by the demons. Tianshan Chamber of Commerce dared to do business with such a cruel and ruthless president. It was very wise to cut his own flesh in exchange for long-term benefit. This courage was admirable. Jing Hao had participated in a successful business negotiation at such a young age, effectively raising his family's influence to another level. He naturally became a role model for the younger generation of the main city's business families. This was something that Chu Tian had not expected. Tong Bowen saw Chu Tian's stunned expression and thought that he had been scared stiff, so he could only let out a long sigh. Tong Xiaoyu stood up with a face filled with guilt. "Big brother, you should quickly leave. We'll go and explain everything." Chu Tian smiled and waved his hand, not putting this matter to heart. The Tong family's doors were suddenly pushed open. A proud young man wearing a brocade robe and several dozen strong guards swaggered into the Tong family's residence. "Fuck! Who dares steal my fiancée? Do you not want your life?" A familiar voice rang out. It really was that bastard. I am the young chairman of Tianshan Chamber of Commerce, Jing Hao. The brocade-robed young man was Jing Hao. His arrogant appearance made it seem like he had completely forgotten that he had been poisoned. He swaggered into the main hall. It was your Tong family that came to ask for a marriage alliance. Now that the betrothal gifts have been received and the news has been spread, you actually dare to play tricks on me. Where do you put my face? Where do you put the face of Tianshan Chamber of Commerce? Jing Hao's eyes filled with contempt swept across the Tong family members. A sense of superiority suddenly appeared in his heart. You dare to play tricks on this young master? I'm now a famous person in the main city. I'm the new rising star of the Jing family. What does this bunch of small family trash count for? Jing Hao's eyes swept across everyone and fell onto Chu Tian, who was sitting down drinking tea. Because of Chu Tian's disguise, he did not recognize him. He shouted out, "How bold! Seeing this young master, you still dare to sit down and drink tea?" Tong Yu revealed a look of hatred. "Young master, it's this person." Jing Hao gave a snort and was about to explode, but his pupils suddenly shrank and his expression froze on his face. He revealed a very strange expression, as if he had seen a ghost. Why does this sword look so familiar? Jing Hao stared at the ancient sword on the young man's back. Where have I seen it before? Wait a minute. Jing Hao felt like a bolt of lightning had struck his head and his mind was filled with an explosion. Isn't this fucking Chu Tian's sword? Where did you get this sword? Chu Tian slowly stood up and revealed a smile that Jing Hao was very familiar with, but it made him feel cold from head to toe. This sword? Of course it's this little one's own sword. Although the appearance had changed, the temperament, the expression, it was all the same. A very terrifying thought appeared in Jing Hao's mind. At this time, from behind Chu Tian, a little head popped out. The little white fox had copied Chu Tian's expression. It narrowed its eyes and revealed a faint smile, looking at Jing Hao with a strange gaze. Little white fox. Oh damn. It really is this damn evil star. After not seeing you for so long, I thought you had died. Chu Tian smiled as he asked, "Not only did young Master Jing not die, you even look radiant. You're even prepared to take a concubine. It really makes this one blush with shame." How bold! The Tianshan Chamber of Commerce guards were all enraged. Tong Bowen quickly stood up and shouted, "Young Master Jing, please calm down, this is a misunderstanding. Let me explain. Did this young man wish for the world to be in chaos? He dared to use this kind of tone to provoke the respected young Master Jing. It's over, it's over." Everyone knew Jing Hao's temper. The Tong family would be implicated today. Tong Bowen and the others are accomplices. Tong Yu fanned the flames from the side. "Young Master Jing, you've also seen it. These people are intentionally insulting you, even daring to steal your fiancé. If this matter were to be spread out, wouldn't you be laughed at by others?" Scram! Jing Hao angrily turned around and slapped Tong Yu's face. Tong Yu flew several meters back and stared at him as he said, "Why?" He spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted on the spot. Jing Hao was like a cat that had its tail stepped on. He angrily roared out, "What are you all looking at? Drag this fellow out for me and beat him. Beat him for me and break his legs." Everyone was stunned. What was happening? Jing Hao turned around and his expression completely changed. There was no longer any arrogance, rather there was a trace of humility and flattery. He awkwardly coughed and stiffly said, "To be honest, I've had a problem with my cultivation recently and my body is not good. I'm dizzy, my kidney is weak, and my memory is failing. I don't even go to the brothel often." Saying this, he began to cough again and again. Because of my body's condition, I'm afraid it's not suitable for me to take a concubine. I came to the Tong family this time to cancel the engagement." Jing Hao came to cancel the engagement? Who was he trying to fool? He had an arrogant appearance when he entered, as if he wanted to tie up the entire house and beat them up. How did he look like he was here to cancel the engagement? In the blink of an eye, he had turned into a sickly appearance. Chu Tian gave a sigh and said, "I think you've overindulged in lust, causing your yang to be weak. Young people need to know how to control themselves and not be too indulgent, do you understand? Weak yang to be weak." Jing Hao's face turned green and he trembled as he said, "Mr. is right." Chu Tian continued to say, "This one has some medical skills, perhaps I can help you improve it." Jing Hao quickly moved to the side and said, "Then I'll have to trouble Mr. I ask Mr. to come to the Jing Palace." Tong Bowen finally understood what was going on. Jing Hao seemed to be very afraid of Chu Tian, it could even be said to be fear. Chu Tian did not directly follow Jing Hao. Rather he ignored Jing Hao and walked to Tong Xiaoyu's side. He revealed a faint smile as he looked at her. "Do you know why I'm helping you?" Tong Xiaoyu blankly said, "Because Big Brother is a good person." "Good person?" Chu Tian rubbed his chin and laughed as he said, "Of course I'm a good person and I'm even better than you think. Do you like making mechanical beasts? I'll give you a test. I have 2 blueprints here and if you can design this thing, send it to the Jing family in 3 days. Then, you'll receive something you can't even imagine." While they were talking, Chu Tian took out 2 scrolls and placed them in Tong Xiaoyu's hands. Then he called the embarrassed Jing Hao to the side and left. Tong Xiaoyu opened the blueprints and was instantly attracted. She had a strong talent for making mechanical beasts since she was young. Although the blueprints Chu Tian gave her were very vague and there were many imperfections, Tong Xiaoyu's intuition told her that this was a very interesting thing. Who was this mysterious Big Brother? She had met a noble person. She had really met a noble person. Tong Bowen asked with an excited expression, "Xiaoyu, can you complete it?" Tong Xiaoyu put away the scrolls and nodded as she said, "This blueprint is almost complete. Big Brother doesn't seem to be proficient in mechanical techniques and only relied on his amazing memory and imagination to draw the blueprint. So, there are a few flaws that can be filled in a bit." Chapter 128. No matter how arrogant Chu Tian was, Jing Hao did not even dare let out a fart. The guards of the Tianjin Chamber of Commerce were all confused. What happened to the young master? Did he change his personality? Actually, they did not know that Jing Hao had provoked Chu Tian several times in Hidden Sound Town. He had tried to swallow Miracle Commerce, but what was the result? Not only did he not succeed, he had lost several tens of millions of gold coins worth of assets. Jing Hao and Jing Xian had been unlucky enough to be forced to take poison. Now they were relying on Chu Tian's antidote to survive. No one in Central State could cure the heart-corroding poison. Chu Tian's life was his life. If Chu Tian died and disappeared, could they still live? The ignorant have no fear. When Jing Hao left Hidden Sound Town, he was filled with indignation and wanted to take revenge. When he returned to Central State, he was so scared that he almost peed his pants. Chu Tian had crippled several experts from the Chu family and the Ye family in South Sky City. As for the 4 young masters, Yi Tianlang, he had personally gone to South Sky City to capture Chu Tian, but he had been captured by Chu Tian. Yi Tianlang was at the 4th Awakened Soul Layer, an illustrious Soul Realm expert at the Intermediate Awakened Soul Realm. He could be considered an expert even in Central State City, but he had been easily defeated by Chu Tian's hands. This caused a large earthquake in Central State. An even more shocking matter occurred. Yi Wudao angrily led all the elites of the Wolf Fang mercenaries to kill his way into South Sky City. He had the momentum of slaughtering the entire city to save his son. In the end, in front of tens of thousands of Ye family mercenaries, scolding Yi Wudao, beating Yi Tianlang, and cutting off one of Yi Tianlang's arms. They were afraid that this matter would not become big. In the end, it was Shin Fengho who had appeared and resolved this crisis. The Ye family was given the cold shoulder and returned without any success. Chu Tian was still free and unfettered, as if nothing had happened to him. This was unprecedented in the history of the Central State. Jing Hao finally knew what kind of person he had provoked. If Yi Wudao dared to provoke him, would he be afraid of a small Jing family? His hatred immediately disappeared without a trace, and what replaced it was extreme joy. To be able to live after provoking such a demon king was really too king lucky. Right now, Chu Tian was a bomb. He had countless enemies in the Central State. If his identity was accidentally exposed, it would definitely cause a commotion. Not only would it bring disaster to Chu Tian, but it would also bring endless trouble to the Jing clan. Chu Tian said to Jing Hao, "Remember, my name is Lu Ren and I am a newly recruited retainer of the Jing family. I don't want a second person to know my true identity, do you understand?" When he thought of the consequences of Chu Tian's identity being exposed, Jing Hao felt a chill run down his spine. Of course, I will definitely keep my mouth shut. Have the things I want arrived yet? The 3 lives demonic insects, nether flame grass, and magnetic sound stones have all been sent to the warehouse. This time we bought them through other channels, so the price will be a bit higher. What, are you afraid that father doesn't have the money? How could I dare? Jing Hao quickly wiped his sweat. Chu Tian took off the heavy bag from his back. With a casual pull, he opened the bag. A large, neatly stacked crystal stone card appeared in front of Jing Xian. I'll pay you 5 million as an advance. Besides the materials, there's something else I need you to do. No matter how rich you are, this one will go through fire and water. There's no need for you to go through fire and water, I don't think you can do it. Chu Tian bluntly knocked on Jing Hao's door. I'll give you a formula to refine. You will follow the formula to refine the hidden sound stones and magnetic sound stones, and I'll give you a blueprint. You will follow the model and build several magnetic sound towers in different parts of Central State City. Do you understand? Jing Hao's head was covered in cold sweat. This project is a bit big. Chu Tian gave a cold snort. Jing Hao quickly said, "But don't worry, sir, I will do my best." Chu Tian patted Jing Hao's shoulder. "I've said it before in Hidden Sound Town, being a dog has its benefits. You are now my dog, so as long as there is a master to eat, there will be bones for you to chew. If this matter is completed in 2 weeks, I'll give you 5 million more gold coins." Jing Hao did not dare believe his ears. Miracle Commerce was too rich. They didn't even blink when they spent their money. From the blueprint, the entire project would require around 10 million gold coins. This included quite a bit of profit, which was equivalent to making a profit of 50%. Chu Tian then said, "Other than that, the Tong family's Tong Xiaoyu will send a few blueprints to your home. I want you to open up a few factories for me to use to produce the things on the blueprint. As for the money, I'll give it to you." Jing Hao was filled with excitement. "I promise I'll complete this task." "That's what you said." Chu Tian gave a snort. "If you can't complete it, then just wait for the poison to devour your heart and die." Jing Hao's body trembled and his face became sullen. If he knew this would happen, he wouldn't have said it so confidently. Once the magnetic sound tower was completed, Miracle Commerce would go up another level, so it was worth investing a bit more in the beginning. Miracle Commerce's money was in Chu Tian's hands, but with the development in South Sky City, it shouldn't be hard to gather another 10 million gold coins in half a month. Heavy rewards and heavy punishments. Chu Tian did not believe that Jing Hao wouldn't honestly help him. Chu Tian gave the details of the plan to Jing Hao. When he was about to leave the Jing family, a large group of beast carriages suddenly stopped in front of the Jing family's gates. Several well-dressed people came down from the carriages and swaggered into the Jing family's gate. A purple-robed middle-aged man didn't even bother announcing his arrival as he walked into the main hall. "Where are Jing Xian and Jing Tianming? I want to see them." It's Sir Jiang Qi. When Jing Hao saw the other side, he immediately became vigilant. He honestly said, "The first master and second master are both out." Jing Hao was a person who was afraid of the strong. People who could be persuaded by the soft but feared the hard. Those who could make him respect him were most likely the hard ones. Jiang Qi knit his brows, but he didn't waste any words. He directly said, "I'll make it short. I came to your Jing family to buy qi refining pills. Since the two of them aren't here, then I'll leave it up to you. How much do you want? Give me a price." Jing Hao said in a depressed voice, "It's not that this nephew doesn't want to sell it, it's that I don't have any left. You also know that the qi refining pill isn't produced by Tianjin Chamber of Commerce. These are all excuses. I don't want to hear it." Jiang Qi's attitude was very firm. "I'll give you 50,000 gold coins for one. I want to buy 10 of them." 50,000 gold coins? My God! Miracle Commerce's standard selling price for a qi refining pill was around 5,000 gold coins. Occasionally it would increase by 1 or 2,000 gold coins. This was already a very violent business. The qi refining pill was sold for over 10,000 gold coins in South Sky City's underground market. Who would have thought that in Central State City, the price of the qi refining pill would be even higher? This rich Jiang Qi wanted 50,000 gold coins for one. Jing Hao secretly looked at Chu Tian on the side. "Sir Jiang, this isn't a problem of money. Tianjin Chamber of Commerce really doesn't have any left, and there are many families that have already reserved them. If you want to buy it, you can only wait." Jiang Qi flew into a rage. "We need this pill right now. I don't care what methods you use, you have to get it for me, otherwise don't blame me for doing something outrageous. You know my identity, so you should know my skills." This era was truly interesting. The big fish ate the small fish, and the small fish ate the shrimp. The law of the jungle was everywhere. Chu Tian's heart skipped a beat as he stood up. "Tianjin Chamber of Commerce doesn't have the qi refining pill. It's useless even if you force it." Jiang Qi coldly said, "You don't have the right to speak here." Cram. "Fuck. I've been looked down on again. Am I that bad?" The little fox clapped its claws twice and nodded its head in approval. Jing Hao was scared out of his wits. He was very clear on this Master Chu Tian's temper. He had already offended 3 great families, so it didn't matter if he offended one more or one less. Jing Hao quickly stood in the middle and wiped his sweat as he said, Sir Jiang, I promise you that as soon as the next batch arrives, I will send it to you first. Please don't be angry." Jiang Qi nodded in satisfaction. He looked at Chu Tian and said, "Do you see this? There is nothing that is impossible in this world. How could a lowly person like you understand? Not selling. Chu Tian gave a cold snort. "You'll never be able to buy a qi refining pill in your life. Jing Hao, your family servants don't seem to be very obedient." Jiang Qi gave a cold snort. "I'll help you teach them a lesson. You won't blame me, right?" Jing Hao quickly said, "Sir Jiang, please calm your anger." "Brat, I'll let you know the consequences of contradicting me." Jiang Qi waved his hand. "Pull out his tongue for me. I want to see if your mouth can still be this sharp without a tongue." 2 Yun family members came forward without any explanation and wanted to capture Chu Tian. Scram! A slap to each of them. The 2 Yun family members were sent flying. Jiang Qi angrily said, "You dare hit the Yun sex people? Do you know the consequences of doing this?" Chu Tian waved his hand and the netherworld sword was pulled out. A dense ghost qi filled the air and surrounded Jiang Qi. A terrifying aura locked onto him, not to mention a few trivial trash. Even if it was the entire Yun sect, what does it count for in my eyes? Not only was Jing Hao shocked, even Jiang Qi was shocked. Did this brat not know the influence of the Yun sect? Most of the Central State's demon refining and talisman refining formulas were researched by the Yun sect. The Yun sect had gathered the top scholars of Central State, and even Shin Feng Ho had to be polite to the Yun sect. What did a brat like him count for? You're seeking death. Jiang Qi released his spirit energy and prepared to summon his source spirit. Chu Tian's sword slashed out and the blue and white sword Qi slashed onto Jiang Qi's body. The terrifying destructive might sent him flying out the door. Pooh! Jiang Qi spat out a large mouthful of blood. The invisible netherworld ghost flame had pierced through his body and damaged most of his meridians. His cultivation base had fallen by a large amount. Too terrifying. This brat was too strong. Perhaps his battle strength was above the second awakened soul layer. A normal person would not be able to deal with him. Jing Hao had seen everything happen, but he had no way of stopping it. He could not offend either side, so what should he do now that he was stuck in the middle? It's over. He's in trouble. He's in big trouble. Chu Tian saw Jing Hao's anxious appearance and couldn't help snorting. What are you afraid of? I was the one who hit him. What does it have to do with you? Then again, he's not surnamed Yun. What is he being arrogant for? Jing Hao wanted to cry. The Yun family's influence in Central State was not small. This young master had hit a Yun sect member in the Jing family's territory. How could this not have anything to do with the Yun family? Do you know why I didn't just kill you? Chu Tian's ice-cold sword was placed against Jiang Qi's neck. Since you're proud of the Yun sect, then I'll just directly ask for advice. Let me see just how different the famous Central State Yun sect is. Madman. He had hit a Yun family member, but he didn't run away in the night. Instead, he wanted to force the other side to bring him to their door. Wasn't this just seeking death? Chu Tian had already contacted the Jing family to secretly build a factory and a magnetic tower. The Jing family was a pure business family, so they were very strong in this area. So, Chu Tian was not worried that Jing Hao couldn't do it. Then, this chess piece that he had buried long ago, it was time to use it. The Yun family, one of the four great families. If he could obtain the Yun family's support without changing his expression, then it would be much easier for him to do things in the future. Chu Tian had saved Yun Yao's life several times and had given the Yun family a new lease on life. Yun Yao should not be a person who would bite the hand that fed her, and Yun Tianhe was a righteous scholar, so he should not burn the bridge after crossing it. It was because of this that Chu Tian was not afraid to go to the Yun family. He wanted to give the Yun family a greeting gift and cause a large stir in the Yun sect. He also wanted to test Yun Tianhe's tolerance. Chapter 129. The Yun sect had two main courtyards, a southern courtyard and a northern courtyard. The northern courtyard was the Yun family's internal research facility, and the southern courtyard was a research facility specially built for guest officials. The Yun family was a family of scholars with a deep background, but no matter how strong a family was, it was still limited. The Yun family was very open and generous. With generous treatment, they invited famous scholars to join them. The southern courtyard was built for this purpose. The southern courtyard's gate was 4 meters tall and 8 meters wide. It was completely carved out of white jade and was flawless. It was very beautiful and was covered in profound runes and runes. It was called the White Gate by the people of South Sky City. The scholars of Central State City all aimed to enter the White Gate, and all of them regarded it as an honor to enter the White Gate. This gate became the belief of countless young people. But at this moment, it was like an artillery shell had been fired. The flawless white jade gate had a corner smashed and a person with a black cloth covering his head was thrown in. This scene scared the people inside the Yun sect silly. Someone actually managed to destroy the famous 100 gates. The person on the ground was like a giant bug as he quickly crawled forward several meters. He took off his mask to reveal a swollen pig face as he loudly cried out, "Save me! There's a thief trying to harm me. Isn't that Jiang Qi? What is going on here?" Pung! At this moment, a large foot stepped on Jiang Qi's body, and a deep blue sword that was like 10,000-year-old ice was raised. The cold blade made his body tremble. He had broken the southern courtyard gate. He had heavily injured a south courtyard consecrated elder. Even a fool would know what was going on, but the Yun sect disciples did not have time to become angry. The young man's sharp eyes swept over them and he gave a fearless laugh. "I'm here to demand an explanation. You small fries shouldn't waste my time. Quickly call the steward out for me." Jiang Qi's position in the Yun sect was not low. He was still a consecrated elder. Not only had he been beaten today, he had even come to the Yun sect. Not only was he looking down on the Yun sect, he was also challenging the entire Yun family. What kind of god was he? The young man was wearing a gray robe with a broken bamboo hat, a normal sword sheath, and a ragged cloth bag on his back. He looked just like a traveler. He was very young, ridiculously young. His hair was messy, and his appearance was mediocre. There was nothing special about him. Jiang Qi's face was filled with shame and anger. He wanted nothing more than to find a hole to hide in. He probably knew how powerful this young man was, so he didn't even dare to move. The Yun sect, the holy land of Central State scholars. When had such a scene ever happened before? A dignified Yun sect consecrated elder had been held hostage by a young man. Not only had he been beaten into a pig's head, but the perpetrator had also asked for an explanation, as if he was the one who had suffered a loss. Is there any justice in this world? This was a naked demonstration, a naked provocation, and an unscrupulous slap in the face. The Yun sect disciples looked at Chu Tian with righteous indignation. The Central State's four great families were the Chu, Yi, Luo, and Yun families. Only the Yun family didn't involve themselves in politics, business, mercenary, or power, but no one dared to question the status of the Yun family. Why? The reason was simple. The Yun family was a true academic family. Half of Central State City's famous alchemists and symbol masters came from the Yun family. Half of the popular talismans and pills on the market were invented by the Yun family. The Central State Symbol Master Guild, the Alchemist Guild, and even the Central State Academy were filled with Yun family students. If the Chu family was said to be the family with the most martial arts aura in Central State, then the Yun family was the family with the most academic temperament in Central State. The Yun family disciples had a strong sense of honor. The scholars of Central State were proud to enter the Yun sect. Chu Tian was using a sword to kidnap the Yun sect scholars. How could these arrogant people tolerate this? It's been many years since someone has dared to cause trouble in the Yun sect. A sharp voice came from the main hall. "You're quite bold." A middle-aged man came out with two old men. The middle-aged man was wearing the robes of a Yun family elder, so it was clear that he was a high-level elder of the Yun family. His eyes revealed a murderous intent, as if he was filled with rage. The two old men were tall and thin while the other was short and fat. They were both dressed like scholars and were also filled with rage. Jiang Qi shouted when he saw the two old men, "Fifth senior brother, sixth senior brother, save me." The middle-aged man was called Yun Guangyan, a managing elder of the Yun family's southern courtyard. He was mainly responsible for managing the daily affairs of the Yun sect. Of the two old men beside him, the tall and thin old man was called Gao Haoran and the short and fat old man was called Li Tai. Gao Haoran and Li Tai were not simple. The two of them were the disciples of the great scholar Gu Qianqiu. Because they had traveled to Central State, they were accepted by the Yun sect and became the pillars of the southern courtyard. What kind of person was Gu Qianqiu? He was the royal teacher of southern Xia and taught the younger generation of the royal family. The Southern Summer King had personally given him the title of Great Scholar, and he was the role model of all the scholars in Southern Xia. Gao Haoran and Li Tai had studied under Gu Qianqiu, so how high was their status? The most terrible thing was that the Jiang Qi being kidnapped by Chu Tian was their junior brother. In other words, Jiang Qi was also one of Gu Qianqiu's disciples. Jiang Qi dared to be this domineering, but Jing Hao did not even dare to let out a fart in front of him. Wasn't it because of this reason? Ha 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 ha. Chu Tian faced the crowd of people and calmly laughed a few times. You have to be clear about something. I am not insulting your Yun family, rather I am helping your Yun family get rid of an evil. If you let this kind of worm stay in the Yun sect, I think the Yun sect will be in danger. The Yun sect was in danger? Yun Guangyan was filled with rage. Who do you think you are, daring to speak such wild words? With how wild you are you not afraid of the Yun family's anger? I am Lu Rin, a wandering itinerant cultivator. I came from 1,000 miles away to learn from you and spar with you. This is because I have heard that the Central States Yun family has a long history and a deep background. They even have a shocking character like the Purple Lightning Young Master, and the old patriarch Yun Tianhe is over 100 years old. Not only is he knowledgeable, he is also courteous and has a good reputation for being benevolent and generous. The Yun sect also has 60 to 70% of the Central States scholars. It has a strong strength and is famous throughout the country. It is the holy land that scholars dream of entering. Yun Guangqi angrily said, Since you came to learn, why did you injure him? You'll have to ask him about that. Chu Tian slapped Jiang Qi's face with his sword. This kind of idiot came out. He doesn't have much strength, but he is arrogant and does not put anyone in his eyes. He wanted to cut off my tongue with a single sentence. This kind of black-hearted person that doesn't know right from wrong actually dares to call himself a scholar of the Yun sect? I beat him up in a fit of anger, but what surprised me was that this piece of trash was really from your Yun sect. This really makes me disappointed. Even this kind of scum can stand firm in the Yun sect. The famous Yun sect is just an organization that deceives the world, and the scholars of the Yun sect are just a group of people. They aren't worth mentioning and aren't worth stopping by. Jiang Qi almost fainted from anger. You're seeking death. Yun Guangyan trembled with anger. Jiang Qi is the great scholar Gu Qianqiu's disciple. What do you count for? You're just a commoner, a nameless nobody. You actually dared to kidnap Mr. Jiang Qi and cause trouble in the Yun sect. You're even spouting shit and tarnishing the Central State scholars' holy land. You cannot be tolerated today. Ha 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 ha. What a good great scholar's disciple, what a good nameless commoner. I already guessed that the Yun sect wasn't good, but I never would have thought that the respected Yun sect would be a group of snobs. If the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. You're a respected elder of the Yun family, but you don't set an example and you don't uphold justice. You only know how to bully the weak and curry favor with those in power. You're standing up for such a scum. Where is your Yun family's pride? Where is the Yun sect's learning style? You call yourself the Central State's #1 academic organization. Chu Tian faced the stern Yun Guangyan. Not only was he not afraid, he even ridiculed him. There are so many young Yun family disciples here. When they see their own family's elder act like this, what would they think? Why is the Ye family so notorious? Isn't it because they do things with a black heart and ruthless hands, causing all of these things to happen? If this goes on, the Yun sect will follow in their footsteps. You don't contribute to the family, but you do things like sheltering parasites. On the surface you're a Yun family elder, but in reality you're the Yun family's thief. The Yun family disciples looked at each other in blank dismay. This fellow's mouth was too sharp. He scolded the elder to the point where he didn't even have a chance to retort. Moreover, this fellow was too wild. There had never been anyone in Central State City that dared to do this kind of thing. Yun Guangyan's face turned ugly. This person had a glib tongue, completely distorting the truth. However, Jiang Qi's temper was clear. He was normally overbearing, and there were already many people in the Yun family that were dissatisfied with him. Although this young man's words were harsh, they weren't wrong. Humph! That's enough. Gao Haoren walked forward. Jiang Qi is a member of the Yun sect. If he does something wrong, the Yun sect will take care of it. It's not up to a little brat like him to manage it. Li Tai was even more direct. This trivial commoner dares to shout at the Yun sect. He has tarnished the school's holy land. He should be killed as a warning to the world. Chu Tian wildly laughed. I wanted to experience the Yun family's teachings, but who would have thought that I would meet a group of pedantic old frogs? Since it's like this, we can forget about learning, but how about we compare notes? What? Compare notes? Ha 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 ha. This really is the biggest joke of the year. I didn't hear wrong, right? A country bumpkin that crawled out from who knows where actually wants to compare notes with the Yun sect. Everyone broke out in laughter. They had seen people that weren't afraid of death, but they had never seen someone this unafraid of death. In a place like the Yun sect, there were many scholars and countless experts. A youth that wasn't even 20 years old dared to challenge them? This kind of knowledge was different from cultivation. Not only did it require talent, it also required time and effort. Rome wasn't built in a single day. Gao Haoren and Li Tai were so angry that they were confused. The two of them were Grand Scholar Gu Qianqiu's disciples, but they were actually being challenged by a nameless commoner brat. This was no different from an insult. Yun Guangyan angrily said, "What qualifications does an arrogant brat have to challenge the Yun sect? You dare ask me what qualifications I have? My brother Tian coming to challenge your Yun sect is already giving you face. This little one doesn't dare say that he knows everything, but in terms of arrays, symbol techniques, weapon refining, alchemy, martial arts, literature, and art. I have studied them all." Chu Tian did not plan on being modest at all. He revealed a domineering and arrogant appearance. Your Yun sect can all come together. Let me see what kind of skills you bookworms have. The Yun sect could all come together? Wasn't this just seeking death? How bold! Yun Guangyan pulled out his long blade. He could not tolerate this kind of humiliation. Elder, wait! Gao Haoren gave a cold laugh as he walked out. This brat's life is not worth mentioning, but the Yun sect's reputation cannot be lost. Since he wants to challenge us, why don't we give him a chance? Yun Guangyan's face fell. This. Li Tai stared at Chu Tian and said, "If you lose, let go of your junior brother and blind your eyes." Yun Guangyan knit his brows. The two of them were truly angry. The two of them had a very high status in the Yun sect. The Yun family had been declining in recent years, so the importance of the Yun sect was self-evident. These foreign scholars were the key to supporting the Yun family, so they could not offend them. I'll give you the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn. Who will go first? I'll test you. A young man stood up. Do you know what the medicine scripture is? Who wrote it and when did it enter the human race? This was a test of history and culture. The medicine scripture was a legendary ancient book. Of the people present, almost no one had ever heard of this ancient book. Chu Tian revealed a faint smile. The medicine scripture is the foundation of alchemy. Its predecessor was a great ancient cultivation technique that originated from the great ancient era. It was created by the ancient god Yaliam, and was revised by the ancient dragon king Kasadi. Then the great sages led by the elven king Uglab extracted the basic alchemy theories and wrote the medicine scripture, but it was stolen by the spirit beast. After another 3,000 years, during the war between the humans and the spirit beasts, this book was introduced to the human continent. The young man's body trembled. Gao Haoren, Jiang Qi, and Yun Guangyan all knit their brows. This was a very rare piece of information, but this little brat actually knew it. The medicine scripture was a great book that established alchemy. It originated from the great ancient era. It was a cultivation technique that could absorb the essence of all living beings for one's own use, but after the end of the great ancient era, the world changed and this cultivation technique could no longer be cultivated. There were only a few obscure and profound fragments and chant. It was then compiled into the medicine scripture by the elves. Another young man stood up. Can you recite the 5,000-word preface of the medicine scripture? With these words, everyone's faces fell. This was purposely making things difficult for him. This medicine scripture was very complex, not to mention reciting it. Normal people wouldn't even have heard of it. As for the preface of the medicine scripture, even a grandmaster would feel dizzy reading it. How could he memorize it? Chu Tian curled his lips in disdain. What did the medicine scripture count for? It had already been restored in the future, and had been greatly modified, so Chu Tian had already memorized the entire medicine scripture. The real medicine scripture has a preface of 8,000 words, but it was passed through the spirit beasts to the human race and was translated into the human language, so many fragments were inevitably lost. If you want to study the real medicine scripture, you must be proficient in the purest ancient elven language. I'll use the ancient elven language and recite the preface for you. This is the benefit that this great master has given you. How much you can remember will depend on yourselves. Chu Tian grabbed Jiang Qi with one hand and pulled out the netherworld sword with the other, walking in front of the wall. A large amount of strange prophecies came out of his mouth. This was not a human language at all. There were over 20 different tones. The cadence, the thousands of turns, it was like he was singing, but also like he was chanting. There was a kind of strange charm that fiercely attacked everyone's hearts. Medicine scripture. Countless scholars had spent their entire lives, but they could not decipher a single thing. Chu Tian actually used the purest ancient elven language to recite the entire preface of the medicine god's scripture. Those profound words attacked everyone's souls. Chu Tian recited as he swung his sword. One after another, complex and profound words were carved onto the wall. Each word was filled with an ancient and wise aura. Line after line of the ancient elven language, it was as if the mysterious aura of the elven forest had been brought into this world. Chu Tian recited faster and faster. The speed at which he swung his sword became faster and faster, as if he was possessed. At this moment, he was like a poet who had written hundreds of drinking poems. At this moment, he was like a wild and uninhibited hero under the sword. At this moment, he was like a master of calligraphy. The words displayed wisdom and art to the extreme, releasing a soul-stirring charm. After reciting the last word, the wall exploded with a loud bang. The priceless chapter was completely destroyed. The Yun sect scholars all had red eyes. No, they hadn't seen enough yet. When the young man turned around, his smile was bright and his posture wild. The sunlight passed through the hole in the wall and shined on his body, covering him in a golden glow. In that instant, it was like a god had come to life. Chapter 130. Chu Tian's wonderful performance was not only seen by the people present. In a small loft not far away, an old man and a young girl also stood up. Their faces were filled with shock as they watched this scene. This old man was Yun Tianhe. This young girl was naturally Yun Yao. When the Yun sect was in trouble, someone came to inform them. When Yun Yao and Yun Tianhe arrived, Yun Yao immediately recognized that the person holding Jiang Qi was Lu Ren. The two of them did not even have time to show themselves before they saw Chu Tian's performance. That flowing 8,000 ancient characters was like a flash in the pan, completely shocking their hearts. To Yun Yao, she never would have thought that this young man would be so knowledgeable, being able to understand the ancient elven language so well. This was something that not a single master in Central State City could do. The one who was truly shocked was of course Yun Tianhe. Yun Tianhe was a very knowledgeable scholar, so he was very clear on the value of the complete preface to the medicinal nerve. This young man could completely recite it, so his attainments in this field already made it hard for Yun Tianhe to catch up to him. Genius? No. There were geniuses everywhere in this era. Genius was not enough to describe him. An evildoer, an out-and-out evildoer. Yun Tianhe couldn't hold it in any longer. He was about to charge down and personally greet this genius. Who would have thought that at this time, Yun Yao would stop Yun Tianhe? What is grandfather in a rush for? Don't you want to see his other skills? Yun Tianhe's heart skipped a beat, but he was also a little worried. You can be assured. Yun Yao said to Yun Tianhe, I know this person's style. For him to appear here today, it means that he already planned this. He came to see me. As long as we don't show ourselves, he will continue to cause trouble until we have no choice but to show ourselves. This was a strange talent. He was a strange talent. He was unmoved by force or persuasion. Unless he wanted to do it, no one could force him to do something he didn't want to do. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Chu Tian to display his talent and open the eyes of the Yun sect. It would also allow Yun Tianhe to see what a true expert was. All right. Let's watch again. Yun Tianhe was very curious. How many unexpected things could this young man do? As for the Yun sect's face, that was not something he cared about at all. It was time to attack the Yun sect's increasingly pompous style of study. Yun Guangyan, Gao Haoren, Li Tai, and everyone else present were all dumbstruck. How was this possible? The elves had a much longer history than the human race. They had created hundreds of languages and words, and their complexity was rarely seen. Not to mention a small kingdom, even the scholars of a big empire might not necessarily know the ancient era's elves' language. No wonder this guy was so arrogant. He did have some real talent. Just this move alone was enough to make him a fully deserving genius. No one present could hope to catch up to him. What's wrong? Are you all stupid? The Yun sect's standard is only SOSO. Chu Tian placed the sword back on Jiang Qi's neck. A question that even a child can answer, and you think you're qualified to challenge me? Chu Tian swore. He really didn't mean to anger them. In the future, this medicine divine scripture was something that alchemy apprentices had to learn. They had to be familiar with it and they had to be able to memorize it. There were several mainstream elven languages that every scholar had to learn. Gao Haoren and Li Tai's faces turned livid. They never thought that things would develop to this point. This was a big problem. Forget about the Yun sect's reputation. The two of them were the great disciples of the great scholar Gu Qianqiu. If they couldn't even deal with a brat that was still wet behind the ears, what face would they have left? The two of them looked at each other. Li Tai stood up. Although I don't know where you got this prologue from, do you think you can be so arrogant with just this? Today we'll let you know that there is always someone better than you out there. Junior apprentice Brotherly is knowledgeable and has studied history and history. Even teacher has praised him for his knowledge. Gao Haoren said to Chu Tian with a proud face, I am proficient in rune arrays. Although I can't say I have inherited teacher's legacy, I have learned 20 to 30% of it. We'll give you a chance to challenge us. Who do you want to compete with and how you want to compete? Just come. The two masters were going to personally make a move? The Yun sect members felt their spirits rise. The two of them were the great disciples of the great scholar Gu Qianqiu, but they were also ordinary people. How could Chu Tian place them in his eyes? He calmly said, It's too troublesome, let's play together. Chu Tian directly interrupted them. First bring out 10 tables of symbol array chess and then bring out the ancient books. I want to play chess with you and compete in knowledge at the same time. Symbol array chess was a special kind of chess game. Using the array as the chessboard and the runes as the flags, they would compete against each other. Not only was it a test of a person's wisdom and strategy, it was also a direct test of one's attainments in the field of symbol array chess. This kind of chess was very different from traditional chess because it used the array as the chessboard. There were thousands of array diagrams in the world, right? Using runes as the chess pieces, there were hundreds of millions of runes in the world. They were ever-changing, filled with endless tricks, filled with endless mysteries. A person who could play symbol array chess could already be proud of being an array master. A person who could play symbol array chess could be considered a peak expert. A person who could play 10 games of symbol array chess? And his opponents were all Yun sect masters? This was something that had never happened before. Not to mention that Chu Tian said he would accept all kinds of challenges from the Yun sect while playing chess. He would compete in knowledge, experience, and knowledge. The ancient books he used were all from the Yun sect. This was undoubtedly putting him in a very disadvantageous position. Why would he do this? Was there a hole in his brain? No, it was clearly not. This was confidence, an incomparably strong confidence. This was even more of a disdain, a blatant disdain. Gao Haoren was also confused from his anger. Good. 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 Then let's compete. Yun Guangyan's face turned livid. This was too exaggerated. Even if the Yun sect won, they would lose all their prestige. Everyone did not dare to be negligent and immediately began to prepare. In just a short while they had set up 10 chessboards. The chessboards were very strange, they were all made of beast skin. There were triangular, pentagonal, oval, and hexagonal array diagrams drawn on them. It was not hard to see from the light that they were all effective array diagrams. As long as various runes were placed on them, they could form an effective source energy array. The talisman array chess used runes as chess pieces and used a source energy brush to draw them. The two sides would fight in the array diagram and destroy the other side's layout, forming their own array. 10 sets of array diagrams, each one different. The Yun sect brought out a large bookshelf that had large amounts of ancient books collected by the Yun sect. There were many contents that the Yun sect could not decipher. There's only half an incense stick of time left. Chu Tian nodded with satisfaction. I don't want to make it hard for you. If I can't win even one of the 10 games in half an incense stick of time, then it's my loss. If I can't decipher one of the ancient books, then it's my loss. Let's begin. Gao Haoren coldly snorted and said, You first. Then I won't be polite. Chu Tian held the source energy brush in his hand and without even thinking, he calmly wrote down the array diagrams. 10 complex runes fell onto the different array diagrams. Gao Haoren's expression changed. The talisman array chessboard was not like a normal chessboard. The talisman array chessboard was ever-changing. Not only did it have changes in shape and content, it also had changes in attributes and laws. A normal array master could only play 2-3 types of chessboards in their lifetime. When faced with a strange array, the chess player had to first decipher the array and then write down the layout. This was a very difficult matter. But what about Chu Tian? With a glance, he wrote down a stroke. It was clean and neat, without any sloppiness at all. If the runes did not conform to the rules of the array, they would be rejected by the array and would disappear without a trace. Therefore, it was impossible for the runes that were scribbled randomly to fit the array diagram. These 10 runes were engraved onto the array diagram, shining brightly and releasing an aura. This meant that these 10 runes perfectly conformed to the array diagram. The most terrifying thing was, he had never seen a single one of these 10 runes before. In this talisman array chess battle, one of the most important things was to destroy the opponent's layout and prevent the array from reaching the large success realm. Now he didn't even know what the opponent had written, so how could he decipher it? Chu Tian saw the constipated expression on the old man's face and laughed as he said, Don't be embarrassed. Your Yun sect can come together and fight with me. You're going too far. Old Gao will help you. The Yun sect's people were filled with righteous indignation. They surrounded the 10 chessboards and began a heated discussion. When Li Tai saw this, the corner of his eyes twitched a few times. With a cold snort, he took out an ancient book from his summer vacation and threw it over. What is recorded in here? Chu Tian slapped Jiang Qi's neck, knocking him out. He casually caught the ancient book. Dragon language. To be more accurate, it's the new dragon language from the ancient era. It records a story. The crystal dragon King Amashurus was born in the Bronze Age year 1331 and died in the Bronze Age year 3412. He dominated the Dumu Plains for 500 years and was the founder of the Dark Blood Dragon Cliff. He received the blessings of the Dragon Emperor and has a total of 9 descendants. They are— what kind of complicated dragon language was this? Even a single symbol or punctuation would take several days for a knowledgeable scholar to study. Chu Tian was like reading a storybook as he flipped through the pages. He read the entire life of the Dragon King without missing a single word. This was a very precious document. Even Li Tai himself was a treasure. Although it was not a cultivation technique or a recipe, it was a record of a powerful dragon's life. It included where he explored, where he built his nest, and where he was buried after he died. From these words, there was a high chance that they would find an ancient ruin. Chu Tian flipped through it once before closing the ancient book. This is the new dragon language's low-level language. It is the language used by the low-level dragon race. So, this so-called Crystal Dragon King is not a high-level dragon. This kind of writing is not challenging at all. Chu Tian waved his hand. The ancient book fell back onto the shelf. It was time to write. After Gao Haoran and the others had studied it, they had already placed a rune on each of the 10 chessboards. There was an offensive, a defensive, a disguise, and a probing. Chu Tian ignored them all. Without even thinking about it, the 10 runes fell onto the array. The runes reflected the previous one, but their styles were all different. Gao Haoran and the Yun sect experts all broke out in a cold sweat. What was this? Why could they not understand it at all? Gao Haoran secretly said to the others, "This brat's array is strange. He actually used runes that we have never seen before, so it is impossible to break it. There is only one method now: drag it out." That's right. Drag it out. They did not know how to break it or how to defend it, so they could only drag it out. They would first occupy the array's eye and block the brat's runes, destroying the array. Even if they could not defend it, they could at least drag it out. Didn't this brat confidently say that he would lose if he did not win a single game in half an incense stick of time? Then they would drag it out until he lost. A single person playing 10 games was a very difficult task. It required a very strong memory and strict logic. There were several dozen talisman array chess experts present, including Gao Haoran. They used all kinds of shameless methods to disturb his thoughts, break his rules, and block his path. Not to win, but to delay his defeat. Not to win, but to delay his defeat? How could Chu Tian not see through their thoughts? But with these idiots' talisman array skills and chess skills, they wanted to stop his arrangements. They were like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Chapter 131. At this moment, the Yun sect realized that the Central States #1 Scholar Alliance was facing an unprecedented challenge. The common-clothed youth that everyone looked down on was actually pressuring over 100 scholars to the point where they couldn't breathe. The Yun family juniors were all shocked. The Yun sect scholars were all recruited by the Yun family from large organizations, and those that entered the Yun sect were not ordinary people. It was because of this that their noses were usually high up in the sky. They always felt that they were a level above others and disdained the normal Yun family juniors. When people faced the high and mighty masters, they only dared to respect them and not feel disgusted. This was because they were people at the peak of their fields. Even if they were a bit arrogant or wild, it was still reasonable. However, the young man was leisurely strolling around with his body free and unfettered. His clear smile did not disappear at all. The Yun sect scholars acted as if they were facing a great enemy. They were all covered in sweat as they whispered to each other. They did not even dare to breathe loudly, as if the situation was very serious. Who was strong and who was weak, it was clear with a single glance. This was only the beginning. The Yun family juniors felt like their world had been turned upside down. These masters that they worshipped were actually working together to fight against a common clothed brat. The most unbelievable thing was that even though they were working together, they were still at a clear disadvantage. Since you claim to be knowledgeable and omniscient, then let me ask you. Li Tai asked in a sharp voice, how many eras has the continent experienced, and what are the characteristics of each era? This question seemed very simple. It was actually very hard to answer. The answer to the question itself was controversial and contradictory. No matter how accurate Chu Tian's answer was, Li Tai could still find a way to refute him. Chu Tian revealed a faint smile and casually replied, "Since the birth of the world, it has been divided into 4 eras. The absolute beginning world has been around for billions of years. The continent has gone through the process of being created from nothing. During this era, the world was dead and there were almost no living beings. It was the time when matter and laws were being created. The absolute beginning world was divided into 9 eras, which are." Chu Tian gave a long and eloquent speech. The 9 eras, how they formed, how they developed, and how they ended were all clearly explained. This made Li Tai completely dumbfounded. He could not find a single point to refute. Chu Tian's answer was impeccable, and it even solved countless mysteries. After the absolute beginning world ended, the continent entered the famous Great World. The Great Desolate Era lasted for about 10 million years. The laws of the continent gradually improved and life began to be born. Legend has it that countless ancient demons, ancient gods, and divine beasts were born during this period. The Great Desolate Era was divided into 5 stages. The primordial world lasted for over 1 million years. The primordial world was the pinnacle of history. Life on the Great Desolate Continent was as abundant as the stars in the sky. All sorts of civilizations were competing to shine, and countless powerful races emerged one after another. Among them, the more representative ones are when the primordial world and the primordial world developed to its peak. Because the continent was so large, even light would need several years to reach the other side. This caused the local laws to differ. Because there were too many laws clashing and opposing each other, the great wilderness continent was torn apart. In the end, the great wasteland continent exploded, and each fragment became an independent continent, forming an independent space-time plane. They produced relatively independent laws, and from then on, the gods and devils fell. Chu Tian described the origin and evolution of the entire world in detail. He described all the symbolic events that had occurred and even the important people that had appeared. The young boys and girls of the Yun family were dumbfounded as they listened. This was because the content was so strange and dazzling that they had never heard of it before. Even Li Tai was speechless. The academic world already had a general understanding of the origin and development of the world, but there had never been anyone like this person who could divide each period into multiple stages and explain them clearly. You said that our continent was formed from a fragment of the great wilderness continent that exploded. A young girl wearing the Yun family's clothing couldn't help but ask, then do the other fragments still exist? Chu Tian easily passed through the 10 array boards and calmly added a rune to the array board. When he heard the question, he calmly replied, "Of course they exist. Although the great wilderness continent has collapsed, it has not disappeared. I believe that one day we will break through the planar barrier and reconnect to the other continent. We will explore the resources on them and compete with the races of other planes." The young disciples of the Yun family were all shocked. Was this true? This continent was vast and boundless, and it was still growing, making it impossible for people to explore its boundaries. It turned out that it was only a part of the Great Wasteland continent. In that case, when the Great Wasteland continent was complete, just how great of a world was it? Chu Tian did not seem like he was competing with the Yun sect at all. At this moment, he seemed like a teacher giving a history lesson to the student. Yun Guangyan was enraged. He stared at the curious faces of the young disciples. What are you doing? Aren't you ashamed? Why aren't you scrambling to the side? The Yun family disciples revealed resentful expressions. They still had many questions they wanted to ask, but with the elder here, they could only helplessly retreat to the side. Yun Guangyan coldly snorted and said, "You're full of nonsense. Do you have any evidence to prove your words?" Chu Tian laughed. Then what evidence do you have to prove that I'm speaking nonsense? Yun Guangyan looked at Li Tai. Li Tai also had an expression like he had eaten shit, humph. Although he added in a large amount of assumptions and guesses, the general experience is not bad. Li Tai never thought that Chu Tian would be able to answer this question so flawlessly. As for the study of the origin of the world, that was what his teacher had heard when he went to the large countries to study. Even in those large countries, it was only a rudimentary foundation and there was no definite explanation. Li Tai then asked, "I'll ask you again. Do you know how many civilizations have appeared on the continent and how many eras the human civilization has gone through?" After the great desolate continent shattered, almost all of the immortal life forms of the great desolate era perished. However, those who possessed the bloodline of the ancient gods and ancient devils managed to survive. They gradually multiplied and formed groups. This process took about 800,000 years. First there were the demons, heaven race, dragons, elves, spirit beasts, and other civilizations. After these civilizations prospered and declined, the human civilization that was known as the sixth civilization was born. During the demons and heaven races era, there were very few intelligent races on the continent. The two ancient races drank blood and did not establish an empire. During the dragons and elves era, there were 4 different stages of civilization. But because the two races lived too long and had a slow metabolism, their civilization progressed slowly. In the end, they were replaced by the spirit beasts. The spirit beasts era had 8 stages of civilization. The spirit beasts multiplied very quickly and created several super empires, creating a very glorious era. Until 20,000 years ago, when the human race began to rise on the eastern side of the continent. The human race was a race that had an advantage over the spirit beast. The human race had the wisdom of the dragons and the learning ability of the elves, so they had more potential than the spirit beast. Other than that, the human race had a very short lifespan, so they had a very strong reproductive ability. They also stood on the ruins of the previous civilizations, so they created a civilization even faster. At this time, someone couldn't help asking, why is it that the human race has a short lifespan is stronger? Good question. Chu Tian raised his pen and looked at that person. If you had a lifespan of 10,000 years, how do you think your life would change? That person could not imagine it. What a joke. 10,000 years. Then what was he afraid of? Of course he would find a safe place to live a carefree and safe life. With 10,000 years of time, no matter how slow his learning speed was, he would not lose to any grandmaster. The young man's eyes that shined like stars seemed to be able to see through one's soul. Because your lifespan is too long, living for 10 years like a day, your initiative will be worn down and you won't be racing against time to learn. Your life will become leisurely and comfortable and your cultivation will become relaxed and casual. The dragons can sleep for 10 years and the elves are immersed in art for a long time. This will cause their civilization to develop slowly and the entire race will lack initiative. When Chu Tian said this, he suddenly paused. On the other hand, when cultivation, learning, and reproduction are all compressed into a short 70 years of life, more life can only be obtained through cultivation. At this time, everyone will be racing against time to cultivate, fighting against the heavens and making wasting time a sin. That will be a completely different scene. Other than that, the world is fair. Races with long lifespans have a low reproductive rate and races with short lifespans have a very fast reproductive rate. No matter how strong the dragons and elves are, they will be replaced by the spirit beasts and humans in the end. This is an inevitability of history. Not only do humans have a stronger reproductive rate than the spirit beasts, compared to the barbaric spirit beasts, humans are more intelligent and have a better learning ability. Therefore, the humans dominating the continent is an inevitability of history. Since our human race rose 20,000 years ago, we have been able to stand shoulder to shoulder with the elves and spirit beasts. In another 10,000 years, the human population will increase by 10 times and our civilization will increase by 100 times. We will definitely become an overlord. The more Chu Tian spoke, the more mysterious everyone became. In the end, they all felt like they were enlightened, and at the same time, they felt a deep sense of pride for their race. So the human race was this strong. A short lifespan was not a good thing for an individual, but for an entire race, it was not a bad thing. The young men and women all revealed looks of worship, knowledgeable, wisdom. This young man who was around their age was too strong. He was not boasting at all. He knew everything from the heavens to the earth. He knew everything from the past to the present. No wonder he dared to challenge the Yun sect. This young man really did have this kind of ability. Unknowingly, the 10 chessboards were covered in runes. It was clear that the array game had reached its climax. 10 chessboards. Each chessboard had over 100 runes. Even just looking at a single chessboard was enough to make a person dizzy. Chu Tian moved between the 10 chessboards, and each time he made a move, it was like 10 different chessboards were already engraved in his mind. It had to be known. Not only was he playing 10 chessboards, he was also playing arrays with dozens of opponents. He was also dealing with Li Tai's tricky questions. The scholars led by Gao Haoran didn't know where to attack, so they used a large-scale delaying tactic. They were guarding the key points of the chessboards. As long as Chu Tian didn't break through these points, he couldn't use the chessboards to form a complete array. What made people scratch their heads was Chu Tian pretended like he didn't know anything. He didn't attack at all and just focused on setting up the chessboards. Gao Haoran's group revealed looks of joy. More than half the time had passed, and with the defenses they had set up, it would be impossible for Chu Tian to break them in a short amount of time. Can you translate the contents of this beast hide? Li Tai threw over a tattered beast hide. This beast hide should have come from a high-level demon beast. Even after several hundred years, it still didn't show any signs of corrosion. This is a cultivation technique recorded in the spirit beast language. Chu Tian opened the beast hide and began to recite it. Of course, the language he used was the corresponding spirit beast language. One hand holding the scroll, the other holding a pen. As he recited, he walked over and placed another rune on the 10 chessboards. Was this brat really omnipotent? Li Tai felt a deep sense of helplessness. He had already taken out several of the most difficult and complicated ancient books, but in front of this youth, they were as simple as children's books. There was no other way. There was simply no other way. This youth was like a god possessed him. There was nothing he didn't know, there was nothing he didn't know. Asking questions really wasn't difficult for him. It seemed like he could only stall for time and make him lose on the chessboard. Li Tai continued to ask questions. The ancient books on the bookshelf were thrown over one by one. No matter where he pointed, Chu Tian would answer without the slightest bit of hesitation. The 10 chessboards had already reached their peak. Each chessboard was filled with several hundred runes, but they were all in harmony from start to finish. There was no sign of them attacking each other at all. Time is almost up. You haven't won a single game. So you've already lost. What else do you have to say? The scholars all had red eyes. Now that things had reached this point, they didn't even care about their face anymore. It was fine as long as Chu Tian lost. Chu Tian shook his head and said, "It's not that I can't win, it's just that I don't want to win." Nonsense. If you can't win, then you can't win. You haven't won a single game, so it can only be considered a draw. Chu Tian began to laugh. Actually, it's easy to win against you guys, but just making you guys lose is not challenging at all. So, I don't want you guys to lose one by one, but rather I want you guys to lose together. Make you guys lose together? Could such a thing really be done? The chessboard could change in the blink of an eye. It was impossible to predict the next move, so how could he control the 10 chessboards at the same time and make them all reach the same result? This kind of control was not something a human should have. Absolutely impossible. Chu Tian was too lazy to talk nonsense. He directly walked to the first diagram and wrote down a rune. Water element, 1000-wave array. The instant the rune was imprinted on the diagram, in an instant rays of light shot out in all directions. The runes were all linked together and a powerful energy rippled out like a wave. Gao Haoran and the others had racked their brains and painstakingly laid down the runes, but they were like mud houses under a tsunami. Bang! They were all washed away. The momentum was like 10,000 horses trampling over them, not leaving a single trace behind. The chessboard was filled with a perfect and pure water attribute energy. Not only was this array successfully laid down, it was almost perfect. It was hard to believe. Light element glimmer array. On the second chessboard, Chu Tian wrote down a rune. The runes on the diagram connected together and released a beautiful glow. The defensive runes that the Yun sect scholars had left behind all disappeared without a trace, like snow melting in the spring sun. The barrier that they had painstakingly laid down was like a dam being washed away by a flood, instantly disappearing without a trace. This is impossible. Gao Haoran was completely dumbfounded. He wrote down the third diagram, and the array began to revolve. Flames soared into the sky and another array was formed. The runes that they had painstakingly laid down were instantly burned away, not leaving a single trace behind. The fourth, the fifth, the 10th. It was just like what Chu Tian had said. All 10 games were won in a single move, without any sloppiness at all. These self-righteous scholars had all lost at the same time. Ha 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 ha. Now let's see who has lost. The young man threw the brush away and began to laugh into the sky. The Yun family youths couldn't help cheering. Too handsome. Beautifully won. This is a true great scholar. This young man's miraculous skills made them feel sincere admiration. As for being humiliated, that kind of thing did not exist. If both sides had similar strength, perhaps they would feel humiliated in this situation. But was Chu Tian on the same level as the Yun sect scholars? The Yun sect people did not even have the qualifications to be his students. Think about it, a super knowledgeable great sage was competing with a country bumpkin who had just learned how to read. If the great sage won the country bumpkin, would the country bumpkin be so humiliated that he would have to jump off a building? What a joke. The great sage was competing with you. This was already giving you a lot of face. Rebel. You're all rebelling. Are you still part of the Yun family? Yun Guangyan's eyes turned red as he roared out, but his voice was a bit lacking in energy. Chapter 132. This was an unheard-of face-slapping method. It was one thing for a person to play 10 games of chess, and it was one thing for a person to win more than 100 people by himself. But not only did he win, he had also calculated every move meticulously, allowing him to win 10 different games of chess at the same time. This was a godly technique. To be able to show off to such a crazy degree, perhaps only Chu Tian could do this in this world. Even Yun Tianhe and Yun Yao, who were watching from the sidelines, were completely shocked, not to mention the people who were personally experiencing it. Impossible! Impossible! The formation skill that Gao Haoran was so proud of was a joke in the eyes of this youth. When he looked at the 10 stalemated chess games being broken one by one, when he saw the profound and perfect formations appearing on the formation diagram one by one, Gao Haoran's eyes were filled with disbelief. With a loud roar, "Pooh!" he spat out a large mouthful of blood. He was like a withered straw in the wind as he powerlessly fell to the ground. "Senior brother!" Li Tai was filled with rage. "Damn! I'll kill you!" Li Tai's claws were like an eagle's, creating a fierce wind as he suddenly attacked Chu Tian. Now that things had reached this point, he could only tear him to pieces to resolve the hatred in his heart. "Sore loser! Is this the Yun sect? Shut up! Die!" Li Tai's attack was about to fall. Netherworld flickering flames. The Netherworld sword danced and a blue and white ice-cold flame was released. It was gorgeous and beautiful, just like a fire dragon. It wrapped around his body. Li Tai's mind was filled with rage. How could he care about anything else? He used his claws to tear apart the flames, but when his hands touched the flames, an evil, ice-cold, and corrosive power surged forward. The surging flames easily burned away his protective spirit energy, instantly dispersing most of the attack. Moreover, it caused Li Tai to suffer quite a bit of backlash. Li Tai did not care at all as he charged through the flames. He only had one goal in mind, to tear apart Chu Tian. But at this moment, Chu Tian activated his sword art and strangely disappeared from the flames. Fast. Too fast. It was almost at the same time that Chu Tian disappeared. Li Tai didn't even have the time to turn his head. A powerful sword light came from behind and heavily chopped onto Li Tai's protective spirit energy. Li Tai screamed miserably as he was sent flying. The little fox jumped onto Chu Tian's shoulder and forcefully blew on Li Tai. Whoosh! The dark red needle shot out and pierced through Li Tai's protective origin energy. It fiercely pierced through his chest and came out from his back. Then, it turned around and pierced through again. Li Tai's meridians were heavily injured. His elemental energy immediately collapsed. He fell heavily to the ground, completely losing the ability to fight. The little fox caught the little needle that flew back and jumped up and down on Chu Tian's shoulder excitedly, squeaking as it asked Chu Tian for credit. Chu Tian rolled his eyes. "Even if you don't make a move, I can still deal with this kind of trash." No one had expected this. Not only was the young man knowledgeable, but he also possessed a powerful combat ability. Li Tai was still a triple awakened soul cultivator. Although his aura had been defeated and his mind was in chaos, with his powerful cultivation base, how could an ordinary person deal with him? He had instantly defeated a young man with a triple awakened soul. How many people could be found in Central State City? Such a miraculous young man. "You're going too far." A terrifying aura was released. Yun Guangyan pulled out his saber and an incomparably sharp saber chi flew at Chu Tian. Gao Haoran and Li Tai, although they had a triple awakened soul cultivation, they were still scholars. Their battle talent was very average, so their strength was not that strong. Yun Guangyan also had a triple awakened soul cultivation base, but his cultivation base was deeper than the two of them. His source spirit was a pure battle type, so even if the two of them worked together, they would not be Yun Guangyan's match. When Yun Guangyan's aura locked onto him, Chu Tian could feel that the other side was very strong. This person's strength was close to Chu Tongwen's. This kind of expert, Chu Tian had to be careful with his current strength. "Ha ha! Come, come, come! Let's fight to our heart's content today." Sword. Spirit energy condensed. The black sword source spirit was faintly discernible. On the surface, it looked like it was forged from black jade, but it revealed a mysterious and vast aura. It was like it came from ancient times and contained the terrifying destructive power of a demon god. Such a strong source spirit. Yun Guangyan never would have thought that this young man's source spirit would actually be a sword source spirit. The most famous sword cultivating family in Central State City was the Chu family. They had the famous soul sword secret art, which was known as the #1 attack cultivation technique in Central State. Yun Guangyan had fought with many of the Chu family's geniuses and experts, so naturally he had seen many different kinds of strong sword source spirits. Compared to this young man, these sword source spirits were not on the same level. From the aura released by the source spirit, it was definitely the strongest and highest level source spirit he had ever seen. But a sword source spirit was a pure attack type source spirit. It greatly increased one's attack power and destructive might, but it did not increase any other aspects. Normally, a sword source spirit owner would be a pure battle type cultivator. It was hard to imagine, how could a sword source spirit owner be related to a knowledgeable scholar? This source spirit had no way of increasing one's understanding of other fields. This young man was too terrifying. He definitely could not be allowed to leave. Yun Guangyan's eyes flashed with killing intent. Those who insult my Yun sect, you must pay the price. I did not insult the Yun sect, it is just that your skills are not as good as others. Chu Tian retorted. A group of scholars that can't even afford to lose, do you think it's my turn to insult you? Yun Guangyan fumed. Even the Chu family's swordsmen do not dare be this arrogant in front of me. Could it be that your sword is stronger than the Chu family's soul sword secret art? What did soul sword secret art count for? It was nothing more than an incomplete ancient sword art. The Netherworld Flame sword Chu Tian cultivated was from an even more ancient era. It evolved from an incomplete sword art. In terms of the profoundness and power of the cultivation technique, just the Netherworld Flame sword could easily kill the Soul Sword secret art. Of course, the Soul Sword secret art was more suitable as a family cultivation technique. The Netherworld Flame sword was very strong, but it had too many restrictions. Normal people could not practice it at all, so it was only suitable as a secret skill. The saber in Yun Guangyan's hand released a bit of lightning, and in the blink of an eye, it condensed into a lightning saber. You're good with the sword and I'm good with the saber. Today we'll compete and see who is stronger. Yun Guangyan's body was covered in a faint lightning glow as his spirit energy condensed into a lightning saber. Saber source spirit? Yun Guangyan's source spirit was a saber source spirit. Just like Yun Yao, Yun Guangyan had the power of thunder, but it was not as pure as Yun Yao's. His saber source spirit only had a trace of thunder and lightning. Because of the power of his source spirit, the saber in Yun Guangyan's hand released lightning. It was like countless silver snakes twisting around it. Wherever it went, the air trembled. It clearly had a strong might. Lightning slash. Yun Guangyan stepped off the ground and soared into the sky. The saber turned into a bolt of lightning as it slashed at Chu Tian. Yun Guangyan's battle strength was still very strong. After adding the power of the thunder saber, each slash he sent contained the power of thunder. Not only did it increase its destructive power by 10 times, it also brought a strong negative effect to his opponent. Thunder and lightning were a kind of wild and violent natural energy. Not only could it restrain demons, it also had a terrifying destructive power. Yun Guangyan had condensed the thunder and lightning energy onto the saber, so the saber was covered in a strong electric current. Whether it was slashing the opponent's weapon, armor, or protective energy, the strong electric current would instantly spread across the opponent's body. It would instantly paralyze the opponent and make them lose their battle strength. Good move. The Netherworld sword was covered in blue and white flames. It did not dodge at all as it faced the attack head-on. This fool actually dared to block Yun Guangyan's saber. Was Yun Guangyan's saber that easy to block? Even an expert with a triple awakened soul would not dare to face it head-on. The moment the Netherworld sword and the thunder saber collided, Yun Guangyan did not feel any repulsive force, rather it was like he was cutting cotton. All of his strength poured out, but it was like he had met a greedy black hole that sucked all of it away. Everyone saw a very strange scene. The thunder on Yun Guangyan's saber began to disappear at a speed visible to the naked eye. The flames on Chu Tian's netherworld sword began to rise, and the entire sword turned into a flaming sword. Yun Guangyan's face fell. What was going on with this fellow's sword? It could actually absorb thunder and lightning energy. What was even more incredible was that the flames on the sword could actually use the thunder and lightning energy as fuel, creating an even stronger flame. Break! Chu Tian gave a low roar. The netherworld ghost flame was released and it violently attacked Yun Guangyan's saber. The saber was broken into several pieces and Yun Guangyan was sent flying several feet by the fierce force. One move. This fellow that came out of nowhere. He had actually sent an elder flying in a single move and even shattered the elder's saber. Yun Guangyan looked at the broken saber in his hand in a daze. This was a high-grade spirit weapon, and it had actually been broken by the other side. The treasure sword in the other side's hand was definitely not a normal item. Yun Guangyan had clearly underestimated Chu Tian's strength. This young man was even more terrifying than he had imagined, but now that he had made his move, he could not back down. Even if he knew it was hard to deal with, he still had to brace himself. Even if he had to sacrifice himself, he had to protect the Yun sect's reputation. When Yun Guangyan was prepared to launch a wild counterattack. Enough! Don't you feel ashamed? A dignified and aged voice suddenly rang out in everyone's ears. An extremely terrifying pressure suddenly descended upon this place. Yun Guangyan's face fell. Patriarch! Yun Tianhe flew into the air and landed in the middle. He coldly looked at him. You still have the face to call me patriarch? The Yun family's face has been thrown away by you. From today onwards, you will be stripped of your elder position and sent to the northern courtyard to do odd jobs for 3 years. Yun Guangyan's face fell, but he did not dare refute him. He powerlessly said, Yes. Li Tai stood up with difficulty. Old Yun, what is the meaning of this? We have done our best to protect the Yun sect, but your actions have chilled the hearts of the people of the Yun sect. Protect the Yun sect. You dare say your actions are protecting the Yun sect. When Yun Tianhe's powerful aura was released, everyone was pressured until they couldn't breathe. A loss is a loss. When has our Yun sect not been able to accept a loss? When did our Yun sect become a group of people who used their power to oppress others? From today onwards, you 3 fellow disciples are no longer members of the Yun sect. The contributions you've made to the Yun sect before, I will compensate you double. But please leave. Li Tai trembled with anger. Yun Tianhe, you're burning the bridge after crossing the river. Yun Tianhe gave a cold snort and a terrifying pressure was released, forcing Li Tai to take several steps back. The southern summer country's #1 scholar Gu Qianqiu, I have the qualifications to sit on the same level as him. What do you count for? You're just an arrogant junior. Don't humiliate yourself. Good. I hope you won't regret this. Li Tai never would have thought that Yun Tianhe would turn his back on him and protect an outsider. But Yun Tianhe's cultivation was deep and immeasurable. Among the scholars of southern Xia, he was a leading figure. Li Tai did not want to suffer this loss and immediately left with his senior and junior brothers. This wonderful conflict was finally over. The Yun family youths all began to applaud. Pung! The netherworld sword was sheathed. Chu Tian turned to leave. Mister, take care. Yun Tianhe quickly changed his expression when he saw Chu Tian. He walked over with a laugh and bowed as he said, Mr. is truly a great talent, allowing this old man to open his eyes. The Yun sect's neglect is due to this old man's lack of discipline. I ask Mr. to come in and let this old man serve tea as an apology. Yun Yao walked over. All right, stop pretending. I know you're here to find us. Come in and talk. Chu Tian shrugged his shoulders and said, All right then. Chapter 133. The youth that they had racked their brains to find had actually taken the initiative to cause trouble for the Yun sect, causing the Yun sect to lose several senior members. It could be said that they had suffered a heavy loss because of this. But this brat was just like how Yun Yao described him. He was a madman through and through. Yun Tianhe did not regret it at all. It didn't matter if those talented scholars left. Even if these people were added together, they could not compare to a single Chu Tian. This time Chu Tian had taught them a fierce lesson and set an example for the Yun sect. In the past few years, the Yun sect had become more and more pompous. They used their power to suppress others and bully the weak more and more. This made this originally peaceful scholar organization become more and more chaotic. Chu Tian's shocking talent was without a doubt. Personally coming out to knock on the Yun sect scholars was a warning to the Yun sect scholars. They would know that there was always someone better out there, and they would be more restrained in the future. Of course, if they could recruit Chu Tian to the Yun sect. When Yun Tianhe thought of this problem, he felt his blood boil. This was not smoke coming from his ancestors' graves, it was like he was about to spit out fire. Yun Tianhe was a righteous old scholar and was different from the other family leaders. Even if Chu Tian was not willing to join the Yun sect, based on the grace he had given the Yun family, Yun Tianhe would not do something like biting the hand that fed him. "Little mister, please have a seat. I've heard Yun Yao mention you before, and meeting you today is truly the fortune of 3 lifetimes." Yun Tianhe personally opened the exquisite jade teapot, and a refreshing fragrance immediately filled the entire living room. Each tea leaf was sparkling and translucent, and it gave off a vigorous aura of life. After being placed in the water, runes appeared on the tea leaves, and a powerful life energy was released, causing the entire pot of tea to turn a jade-like emerald green. Chu Tian rubbed his chin. "This tea is not bad." Yun Tianhe quickly introduced it. "These are tea leaves from the Elven Kingdom, and each one is hard to buy. The water used to make this tea comes from the spring of life, which can cleanse one's bones and prolong one's life. It can even increase one's cultivation base." Yun Yao couldn't help giving a soft snort. Even her grandfather couldn't bear to drink this tea. He was not stingy and had taken it all out today. From this, it could be seen how much he valued this fellow. Yun Tianhe had lived for almost 100 years, but he was as nervous as an apprentice seeing his teacher. He had too many questions to ask, but he didn't know if he should ask. This young man had an eccentric temperament. It would be bad if he neglected him. Yun Tianhe thought about it again and again. He could only push back the question and give him the best treatment. Chu Tian picked up the teacup but didn't even drink it. He just sniffed it and said, "Elven green tea originating from the jadeite plains in the south. The wood elves planted it and watered it with crescent moon spring water for about 100 years. However, the superior tea elves keep the superior tea elves for their own enjoyment and sell the medium tea elves to their allies. Even among the inferior tea elves, your tea elves are considered inferior." Yun Tianhe was shocked. Just by smelling it, he knew the quality of the tea, the origin of the tea, and the planting method? Yun Yao was a little dissatisfied. "You should be content. Do you know how rare this tea is?" "Yaoer, what are you saying?" Yun Tianhe was a little dissatisfied. "Go stand outside in the courtyard, don't disturb Mr. here." Hurry up and go." "All right then." Yun Yao stared at Chu Tian and helplessly walked away. For a small country like the southern summer country to obtain the wood elves' green tea, even if it's inferior, it's not easy, so we can't be too demanding. Chu Tian put down the teacup. "Only, your hospitality needs to be improved. There are clearly 2 people here, but you're only making a single cup of tea. Isn't that neglecting the guests?" "2 guests? Where was there a second person?" The little fox gave a snort. It stuck out its chest, stuck out its butt, and proudly crossed its claws. It stood up and stared at Yun Tianhe with a face filled with dissatisfaction. It seemed like it was saying, "Pouring tea for him but not for me, are you looking down on this fox?" Yun Tianhe was shocked. He really was worthy of being a strange person. It was very rare for a pet to be this intelligent. Oh, it's this old man's negligence. Yun Tianhe quickly brewed another cup of spirit tea. The little fox reached out with its 2 claws to grab the teacup. It did not care that the tea had just been boiled and opened its mouth to drink it all. It smacked its lips a few times, as if it was savoring the taste. Then it licked its lips with its pink tongue and revealed an expression of wanting to continue. It used its 2 claws to bring the teacup back. It used its claws to point at the empty teacup and then pointed at its mouth. More? Yun Tianhe quickly poured another cup. The little fox drank it all in one gulp. Truly strange. The energy in the spirit tea was not small. Such a small fox, wasn't it afraid of its body exploding? This little fox was too intelligent, it was simply like a human being. Yun Tianhe's attitude and performance made Chu Tian feel very satisfied. This old man was the head of the family and the Yun sect's sect master, but he did not have any arrogance at all. He was very courteous to this man and fox. This kind of courteous attitude was rarely seen in this era. Yun Tianhe and Zhang Liqing were the same kind of people. This kind of person could be considered a true scholar. Yun Tianhe's knowledge, cultivation base, and status, they all surpassed Zhang Liqing by a large amount. Of the 4 great families of Central State, Chu Tian had already offended 3 of them. In order to gain a foothold in Central State, he had to win over one of them. Yun Tianhe said with a faint smile, "My granddaughter has an arrogant personality and has caused quite a bit of trouble for Mr. This old man will first offer a cup of apology and thank Mr. for taking care of my daughter. It was just a slight effort, it's not worth mentioning." Chu Tian took a small sip and a strange fragrance filled his mouth. It was like it could soak his body, making all the pores on his body open up, letting him breathe in the clear air. It really was worthy of being elven green tea. Little friend Lu has traveled thousands of miles to Central State. Do you have a place to stay? Yun Tianhe carefully probed. If you don't mind, how about staying at the Yun family's residence? Who knew? Yun Tianhe did not even have time to finish. A young man with a swollen face charged in from the door and shouted in an unclear voice, "Old sister, I was beaten by that bastard from the Luo family while visiting a brothel. You have to take revenge for me." Yun Yao stood at the door with an awkward look on her face. She gave a gentle cough. This unfilial son. Yun Tianhe's old face turned dark and he angrily slapped the table. "Yun Shao, do you feel uncomfortable if you don't lose your grandfather's face?" When that swollen-faced youth saw Yun Tianhe, he was shocked. He gave an embarrassed smile and said, I'm sorry, I didn't see grandfather here. I haven't cultivated today, so I'll be leaving now. Come back here for me." The young man walked in front of Yun Tianhe with a crying face. Yun Tianhe shouted with a calm face, "What is going on now?" Yun Shao honestly reported, "Grandson was peacefully studying in his room, but who would have thought that I would be led to the Miao Yu Square by a bunch of scoundrels? I just wanted to have the lead girl Yu Lian sing a few songs to relax, but who would have thought that the Luo family would come and cut in line? I was so angry that I fought with them, convinced. Going to a brothel and not being able to get the lead girl, he actually came back to ask for help. This kind of person was truly rare in this world. Yun Tianhe's nose almost went crooked from his anger. The Yun family's face has been lost by you. Starting from today, you'll be grounded for 2 months. You'll only need to study and cultivate, you're not allowed to take half a step outside. Yun Zhao's face fell. Grandfather, aren't you trying to take my life? Yun Yao, why aren't you taking your little brother away? Blocking this little mister's face. Even if you don't find it shameful, I do. Wait a minute. Chu Tian stood up. Yun Tianhe quickly stood up. Does Mr. have any orders? Chu Tian walked in front of Yun Shao and carefully looked him up and down. This bone structure is not bad, but his cultivation base is a bit weak. Yun Shao was a bit unhappy hearing this. Brat, what are you muttering in front of me? This master is still in the first awakened soul layer. I don't think you're any higher than me. What qualifications do you have to judge this master? Pung. Be a bit more honest for me. Yun Xiao was hit by the cane and was stunned. What kind of situation was this? Even his grandfather had to give face to this little brat. Was he his grandfather's guest? Chu Tian pondered for a few seconds and suddenly made a decision. He turned to Yun Tianhe and said, "Old man Yun, I don't think we should ground him." "What? Old man Yun?" Yun Xiao was stunned. How much courage did this fellow have, actually daring to call Yun Tianhe like this? This was the family head of one of the four great families. His strength was close to the true soul realm. It was not something Chu Tian could imagine. What Yun Xiao did not expect was that his grandfather was not angry at all. Rather he asked, "What does Mr. mean?" Chu Tian said, "I'm missing a follower, why don't you give him to me and let me train him for a few days? Perhaps there will be some unexpected changes." This deity wanted to train the Yun family? This was exactly what Yun Tianhe wanted. Yun Xiao was a direct descendant of the Yun family. He only knew how to eat, drink, and gamble all day, so he had already become the shame of the Yun family. This kind of hopeless fellow had actually caught the eye of this person. It really was a blessing accumulated over several lifetimes. Yun Tianhe grabbed his grandson's ear and roared, "From today onwards, you will follow this little mister's side. You will be at his beck and call, serving him tea and water. You must serve him well, and if you dare be negligent, I'll break your legs. Do you hear me?" Yun Xiao was completely stunned. This was the respected Yun family's eldest grandson. He had actually been sent to be an outsider's follower. Had his grandfather gone senile with age? Although Yun Xiao was filled with dissatisfaction, he did not dare show it. He could only brace himself and accept it. Yun Tianhe quickly asked Chu Tian, "Does Mr. have any other orders?" "As long as you say it, as long as it is within my abilities, this Yun will not refuse and will do my best to complete it. There's nothing else for now." Chu Tian pointed at the Yun siblings. "Have the two of them come with me. I want to visit the Yun sect. I should be able to satisfy this request, right?" Yun Tianhe was shocked. "Of course you can, of course you can. What are the two of you staring at? Why haven't you brought this little Mr. Lu to visit yet?" "I'll have to trouble you." The little fox wanted to grab the teapot. Chu Tian grabbed it by the neck and pulled it up. It was enjoying its tea, but it was suddenly interrupted. The little fox could only angrily protest at its master. Of course, this master who did things his own way did not care about its protests at all. Chu Tian brought Yun Yao and the Yun siblings, and before he left, he said to Yun Tianhe, "I will be bringing the young master to do a few things during this period of time. I hope that old Yun will not interfere. When the time is right, I will naturally cooperate with the Yun family. If there is anything I need to do during this period, I will have Yun Yao pass on the message. See if it's possible." Yun Tianhe knit his brows. It was just as Yun Yao said. This fellow coming to the Yun sect had been planned from the beginning. What was his goal? Yun Tianhe really wanted to know the answer, but he could only suppress his curiosity. "Please be assured. I won't ask about it." Chu Tian nodded his head in satisfaction. He needed to borrow the Yun family's strength, but it was not suitable for a large-scale battle. Yun Xiao was the most common playboy in the Yun family, so there were some plans that could be completed through him. There was no need to go through Yun Tianhe at all. Chapter 134. The brother and sister showed him around the Yun sect. The Yun sect sounded like a sect, but it was actually a private academic organization. They mainly focused on alchemy, talisman, weapon refining, arrays, cultivation techniques, and martial arts research. Central State Academy was a public institution and the Yun sect was a private institution. The Yun sect's requirements to recruit members were much higher than Central State Academies. Central State Academy students came in every few years, but the Yun sect did not graduate. Scholars were all equal. Most of the Yun sect scholars were Central State Academy's lecturers. Of course, there were also some who were the most outstanding graduate. The Yun sect is Central State City's largest research organization. There are over 80 laboratories, and it has the best research environment and resources in Central State. You have to know that every year in Central State City, at least a third of the new knowledge comes from the Yun sect. It drives the entire business and military development. Isn't it amazing? Not bad. The Yun sect really did have some capital. Among the four great families, the Chu family was a martial artist, the Luo family was a politician, and the Ye family was a private army. Only the Yun family was suitable to cooperate with Chu Tian. Young Master Yun Shao had a swollen pig head as he swaggered in front. His face was filled with arrogance as he introduced himself. As for me, I am the Yun sect's little white dragon. People call me the young married woman killer. Not only am I handsome, I have also practiced the 13 thunder blades to perfection. Once a blade comes out, it is as fast as lightning and no one can block it, so you have to be careful, little brat. Although grandfather told me to follow you, there is still a difference in status, so don't expect me to serve you. This fellow's face could compare to father's. Yun Yao knit her brows and kicked him. Stop farting here. The 13 Thunderblades is the Yun family's high-level martial art. If you practice it to perfection, would you still be beaten into a pig head every time? Yun Shao let out a squeal like a pig being slaughtered as he held his, but that had almost been kicked. Old sister, in front of outsiders, can you give me some face? No matter what, I am still the Yun family's benchmark of handsome men. This was truly infuriating. Why was the Yun family's third generation so disappointing? This little brother's talent was not bad. If he was willing to cultivate properly, he would not be inferior to the purple lightning young master, and the pressure on Yun Yao would not be this big. Chu Tian rubbed his chin and said with a smile, 13 thundering blades? This saber technique sounds domineering, but I wonder how powerful it actually is. Yun Shao revealed a look of disdain. You want to fight? Let me tell you, among the people who use blades in Central State City, this young master is one of the best, always drawing blood. I advise you to give up on this idea, otherwise you will just be asking for trouble. The little fox looked like it was about to vomit. This level of shamelessness is almost half of masters. How could there be such a pretentious person in this world? Chu Tian turned around and said, Then let's give it a try. Make your move. When Yun Shao saw that Chu Tian was really challenging him and was arrogantly showing his back to him, he couldn't help being enraged. What do you mean by this? The 13 thunderclap blades was known for its speed. If you dare to leave your back to me, aren't you courting death? This way, even if I kill you, it will be an unfair victory. This young master is an open and above-board person. This kind of thing is beneath me. Say that again if you can hit me. Good little brat, I'll let you see how strong this young master's saber technique is. Yun Yao's fingertips released sparks. With a flick of her finger, it hit Yun Zhao's face. Ow! Yun Shao covered his pig face and angrily shouted, Old sister, why did you sneak attack me? You could hit anywhere, but you actually hit my face that I regard as important as my life. Do you know that I will rely on this face to make a living in the future? Yun Yao glared at him, and then looked over at Chu Tian. This idiot. He didn't even know what kind of person he was facing. Even Yun Tianhe was respectful towards him. Was he someone a waste like him could provoke? Yun Zhao's eyes narrowed and he began to laugh. I understand. Old sister. You want to teach him a lesson, right? With your status as one of the 4 young masters, it's not convenient for you to make a move. This kind of small matter should be given to this little brother. Yun Yao gave a sigh. Forget it. Let Lu Ren properly beat this idiot up. Yun Shao arrogantly said to Chu Tian, Hey, little brat, are you ready? This young master's saber is very fast. Don't be chopped down before you can even react. Too much nonsense, hurry up and make your move. Chu Tian slowly closed his eyes and opened his mind's eye. Everything in the world was covered by his divine sense. Yun Zhao's body trembled. Although he did not understand the mind's eye, he could feel that there was an invisible energy that directly penetrated his body. What was going on? Father doesn't believe it. Saber. Yun Zhao released a bolt of lightning that condensed into a long saber. Although he also had a thunder-attributed saber source spirit, Yun Zhao's saber spirit was longer and narrower. It was not as rough, and it was covered in runes. It was filled with an ancient aura and had a terrifying destructive might. Watch this move. Yun Zhao pulled out the saber from his waist and stabbed at Chu Tian's back like a bolt of lightning. In the end, Chu Tian acted like a prophet and the saber brushed past him, easily dodging the attack. The saber chi mixed with lightning flew out and left a saber mark on the ground. Damn! Consider yourself lucky. Watch this saber. In the end, it was still easily dodged. Yun Zhao's nose almost went crooked from his anger. This brat was like a loach. He was flustered and exasperated, but he did not believe it. He completely released his saber art. The 13 Thunderblades was indeed the Yun family's famous technique. Fast, fierce, and strong. Each saber contained a strong destructive might, and once it was released, it was like an unstoppable bolt of lightning. Only under Chu Tian's mind's eye, it was full of flaws and was not worth mentioning. When the last saber was released, Chu Tian suddenly turned to the side. When the saber passed in front of him, he gently pinched it with his 2 fingers, accurately hitting the weakest point of the saber and forcefully twisting it. Puff! The saber broke on the spot. When the lightning exploded, Chu Tian had already prepared the Starlight Immortal body to protect himself, but Yun Zhao had been sent flying by the explosion. His already swollen face turned black like coal and his hair stood up like chicken feathers. Chu Tian opened his eyes. He was not injured at all and revealed a faint smile. How is it? Damn it! How did you see through the 13 Thunderblades? Chu Tian patted the dust off his clothes. If you want to learn, then I'll teach you a few moves. Yun Zhao awkwardly crawled up and followed with a face filled with worship. I understand, no wonder you had a way to teach that old man a lesson. You really do have some skills, teach me a few moves. Otherwise, every time I go to a prostitute— oh no, I mean listen to a song and get beaten up by others, but when I come back, I'll be beaten up again. Chu Tian rubbed his chin and said, there is a condition. Yun Zhao suddenly became very alert. From today onwards, you will be my big brother. If you tell me to go east, I won't go west. If you tell me to go north, I won't go south. Yun Yao wanted to find a hole to hide in. How did the Yun family give birth to such a clown? He was the Yun family's eldest grandson. This was too shameful for the Yun family. This matter might not be a bad thing for you. I have a good idea on how to make money. Chu Tian gave a mysterious smile. We'll work together. If we make money, I'll give you 2/10. The 2 of them had been pampered since they were young. How could they think about making money? This was the first time they had heard of this new matter. Only 10% for the 2 of us? Yun Yao snorted and said, are you trying to send away beggars? Yun Zhao was very interested. Money was just a number to him. The main point was the fun. Actually, money doesn't matter. The main point is whether it's fun or not. Don't look down on this 10%, it's already very impressive. Chu Tian gave a mysterious smile. I won't tell you the specifics for now, but this matter can't be done by one person. Other than you 2, I will need the help of others. Everyone will have a share, so if it's calculated like this, I will at most take 60%. This wasn't a lot? The 2 siblings were stunned. But Chu Tian's heart was at ease. This was the so-called capable people do more work. If it wasn't for the fact that you two had some use, you two wouldn't even be able to get a single copper coin. Yun Yao was also a bit interested in this matter. She had 100% trust in Chu Tian's ability. He was the same as Yun Xiao, he did not lack money. She was just curious as to what method he would use to make money. As for whether it's fun or not, I can't guarantee it for other people, but for you, it's very suitable. Why? Chu Tian looked at Yun Xiao a few times. You really like to act. You really like to be in the limelight. Yun Xiao was not ashamed at all. What's wrong with that? A man has to act. Your acting posture isn't right. Chu Tian was a master of acting, so he used his professional eyes to judge this rising star. In these next 2-3 days, I will give you some pointers and let you know how to act properly. Yun Xiao scratched the back of his head. But, does it have anything to do with making money? Chu Tian gave a mysterious smile. It has a lot to do with it. Not only can you make money, it can also make you the center of attention and make the Central State Academy's students worship you. Don't you like this kind of feeling? Yun Xiao's eyes lit up. Wouldn't there be countless beauties throwing themselves at me? Chu Tian nodded. If you can reach 100th of my level, this isn't hard to achieve. Then what were they waiting for? Let's begin. Not to mention money, even if he didn't have money, he, young Master Yun, would still be willing. Let's start with your blade technique. This blade technique isn't good, we need to change it. Yun Xiao was stunned. How do we change it? 13 blades is too many, we'll simplify it a bit and leave 3 blades. The Yun siblings revealed looks of shock. The reason why the 13 thundering blades became the Yun family's famous cultivation technique was that the power of this blade technique was constantly increasing. Each blade was stronger than the last, and each blade was accumulating power for the next blade. The last blade was the most powerful. 13 blades had been reduced to 3 blades. Wouldn't it be able to instantly accumulate power and destroy the enemy in one go? After the 13 thunder blades was reduced to 3 blades by Chu Tian, its might would not decrease, rather it would increase. The value of this martial art would increase by more than 10 times. Chu Tian said to Yun Yao, let's split up first. Bring the Central State Academy's teaching materials over. I want to look over all of them. I also need some herbs. Some of them are for Yun Xiao and some of them are for me, so I'll have to trouble you to bring them over for me. Yun Yao and Yun Xiao did not know what Chu Tian was thinking at all, but if Chu Tian wanted to bring the teaching materials, then he would go. Who told his grandfather to follow Chu Tian's requests? Yun Tianhe was one of the Central State Academy's deans, so what couldn't Chu Tian see? Yun Yao immediately went over. Yun Xiao said in a stunned voice, what are we doing? Chu Tian said to him, I'll give you everything you want to learn in the next 2 days. I'll say the ugly words first, I don't have the patience. In at most 3 days if you want to learn, you'll have to suffer a bit. Yun Xiao gave 3 loud laughs. What are you afraid of? I don't have any other skills, but I'm not afraid of suffering. Chu Tian nodded with a faint smile and said, do you know why I asked you to follow me? Because I like your attitude. Since it's like this, then let's begin. Yun Xiao looked at Chu Tian's smile. He did not know why, but he suddenly shivered, as if he was a little regretful. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.